Good morning. I don't remember what day this is, so I'm not even going to do my. It's almost done. Yeah, I don't know what day it is. Anyway, morning. Welcome to our budget hearing with our state-related universities. That is Pittsburgh, Penn State, Temple, and the Lincoln University. The home of Kwame Nkrumah, first president of Ghana, home of Thurgood Marshall, first African-American to sit on the Supreme Court of this United States, and so many more, Langston Hughes. But Kwame Nkrumah was very special. Not just was he the first president of Ghana, he was also a proud member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Just saying. So was the first president of Nigeria, who also went to Lincoln, a proud member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Anyway. Before we begin, Chairman Struzzi, any introductory comments?
Yes. Good morning, Chairman Harris, and good morning to all of our esteemed guests today. I'm going to give a quick overview of your funding proposal that the governor put forward. Penn State, generally across the board, everyone is level funded from last year based on the governor's proposed funding, with Penn State at $277 million, Temple at $158 million, Pitt at $155 million, and then Lincoln at $23 million, for a total of, in general, $614 million. But I think it's important to note that all of you had asked for additional funding in your budget requests. So I think that's something that we're going to have to explore today, and clearly that doesn't include the performance funding that the governor has allocated of $30 million. We also want to talk about the strategic plan that the State Board of Higher Education is proposing, and then some of the stuff, follow-ups from last year, campus closings, obviously, tuition rates, and things like that. So we have a lot to cover, but I think it's important we understand where you guys are and where the spending proposal that the governor put forward is, and try to understand what those differences entail. All right? Thank you. We look forward to your testimony.
Thank the Chairman. Before we get started, could all of our presidents rise and testifiers rise so we can swear everybody in? Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, so help you God? You may be seated. In the middle of our table is our timekeeper. Our members will have 5 minutes to ask questions. When the light turns green, as it is, that means that our members will commence with the questions. When the light turns yellow, that means that there are 30 seconds left. And when the light turns red, we ask that you would conclude with your comments. We're going to begin with opening statements. If you don't have one, you don't have to make one up. We get right to the questions. But if you have an open statement, you may begin with the opening statement, and we'll let you decide who goes first.
Thank you. I'm Brenda Allen, President, Lincoln University. First of all, I want to thank all the members here today for allowing us to be here and to talk about our institutions. The Commonwealth has been very kind to my institution over the course of many years, and we are so grateful for that support, both in our state appropriation and in our capital budget. The state's investment in Lincoln University has really helped it to continue to grow and to invest in the education of populations that may go underserved because of background. As you all know, Lincoln University was founded in 1854, 10 years before the emancipation of the race, as the first degree-granting historically black college in the nation. The bold mission of Lincoln University was even more profound in that our founders believed that investing in a liberal arts education to men of African descent would really help to create the kind of leadership for people who 10 years after its founding were leaders in moving the race into the middle of society. Lincoln University has great value to the Commonwealth, and especially great value to the county in which we sit. We're the largest employer in that region. We generate about $294 million in economic impact in our area. We create 1,054 jobs based upon the work we do, and for every $1 spent by Lincoln University and its students, we generate $1.70 in economic benefit for the community. Lincoln also stands as one of the nation's top institutions for social mobility. More than 90% of our students are first in their families to attend college. Nearly 70% of them are Pell eligible. Yet despite these challenges, Lincoln ranks in the top 50% of institutions nationwide for moving students upward economically. And in 2017, a study identified Lincoln as #1 in Pennsylvania for lifting individuals from the lowest to the highest economic brackets. These outcomes, we think, affirm a simple point, where a student starts does not determine how they will go. What matters is education and the support they receive along the way. While we remain deeply committed to our mission, we face significant pressures that are affecting our ability to sustain operations at the level our students deserve. Primary is that many of our institutions, and Lincoln included, are experiencing enrollment declines as the result of population decrease, but also the lasting effects of the COVID pandemic. Secondly, there's been a loss of critical experiential learning opportunities for our students because of some of the confusion with the anti-DEI from the federal government, but it's also confounded with endorsement of HBCUs, and so many of our partners don't know how to interpret anti-DEI versus endorsement in HBCUs, and as a result, many of the opportunities that our students had with corporations and federal agencies have actually stopped because individuals don't know whether or not something will violate a law. So in this budget, we're just really asking for an increase to help us to make up some of that difference. Big part of it is increasing energy costs and other kinds of just basic costs for running an institution. But we also have to continue to invest in scholarships for our Pennsylvania residents, again, with 90% of our students being first in their families to go to college and 70% of them being Pell eligible, closing the gap between what they can get in financial aid and what their families can afford becomes really very crucial. We are also finding ourselves having to make up some of the difference in the lack of partnerships that we have because of the confusion with the federal government. And so, as a liberal arts institution, those co-curricular opportunities are vital for the education that we offer our students. And so we want to make sure that they continue to have the opportunity to use theory in the workplace or in undergraduate research. And because we can't get those in grants in the way that we used to, we need to be able to offset that lag. And finally, just investing in faculty and staff, IT infrastructure. With AI coming in, it's really putting more pressure on what we need to have in terms of our information technology infrastructure. And so more dollars to investing that is what we are really asking for. So I thank you again for your past support and for the opportunity to speak today. With your continued investment, Lincoln University will remain a place where first-generation students from low-income backgrounds can graduate and move into economic mobility, upward economic mobility, and reach their aspirations. And those outcomes are always good for the Commonwealth because many of our students stay here and continue to invest and contribute to the economic growth of Pennsylvania. So thank you.
Chairman Harris, Chairman Struzzi, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to discuss the significant impact that state funding has on Penn State, our students, their families, and indeed citizens across the Commonwealth. As partners for nearly 2 centuries, the Commonwealth's investment in Penn State as your sole land-grant university is truly felt statewide. From the more than 41,000 Pennsylvania resident undergraduates who benefit from the university's discounted in-state tuition rate, to the science-based programs, services, the knowledge, offered by Penn State Agricultural Research and Extension, which is offered, by the way, in all 67 counties, and the top quality care provided by Penn State Health. Just a few weeks ago, we celebrated Founders Day. That marks the anniversary of Penn State's establishment as the Farmers High School of Pennsylvania in 1855. It offered us an opportunity to pause and reflect on where we began and how far we've come. We've responded to new generations of students, new areas of knowledge, new forms of dissemination, and new challenges facing the Commonwealth and the world. Change has never been separate from our mission. From the very beginning, it has been essential to it. Every single chapter of our history reflects the adaptation, from meeting our students where they are, to strengthening academic excellence, and to deepening our impact. Very quickly, to give you a few proof points, we are committed to delivering the highest quality educational experience at the lowest price for students of all backgrounds and means. This year, our budget request expands our commitment to keeping costs as low as possible for students. If our full funding request is approved, Penn State commits to freeze tuition for all undergraduate students and all campuses for the 2027-2028 academic year. We appreciate the governor's proposed $30 million allocation for the newly created performance-based funding model. This model, which passed with strong bipartisan support last year, would link funding to the metrics that matter. It would link funding to student support, to student success, to access, and to workforce readiness for the state. And it strengthens accountability for taxpayer dollars. As with other public universities, we too face inflation-driven cost increases, changing demographics, competition, and state funding that has remained essentially unchanged from the early 2000s. It is important to note that Penn State has not seen an increase in general support appropriation since 2019. And all of the data that I'm giving you today come from your own publications, the Joint State Government Commission. So every data point comes from the data that you provide. I would note that unadjusted for inflation, what are called nominal dollars, so just dollars, Penn State's general funding now is less than it was in the year 2000. So think about the inflation that has occurred over the last 26 years. If Penn State's allocation had simply kept up with inflation from the year 2000 on, today our appropriation would be more than $450 million. So we get about $200 million less if we had just kept up with inflation. While in that we're in the same boat with other state-related institutions, there is another big hurdle that we face that I have tried in my 3 years that I've testified before you to bring your attention to. We get substantially less per student than PASHE, Pitt, or Temple. This is existential for us, something that I hope you will look at. This has been decades in the making, and we really hope we start to close that gap. It's untenable. Greater investment in Penn State is vital, not just to Penn State, but to Pennsylvania, supporting our efforts to attract the brightest students, the students that may not have had the means and the support, helping them to succeed here. I want to share some numbers about our impact. We are an economic driver. Independent studies show that we provide about $16 billion in economic impact to the state. For every dollar that you have given us in state appropriations, we return $25 to the state. Something that's even more striking, for every dollar in state appropriations that we receive, the state receives $2.27 in tax payments. We are home to more than 19,000 first-generation students. When people think of Penn State, I think they're surprised to know that. It's about 23% of our student body. And in the latest class that we've admitted, it's about 28% are first in their families to go to college. And we have over 20,000 Pell Grant recipients. So when you think about Penn State, please remember, at scale, what we are trying to do. We educate more Pennsylvanians than any single institution in the state. And we have about 400,000 alumni that live and work here, contributing to the workforce and to the economy. Of the $1.44 billion in research that we do that solves complex challenges and driving innovations, I am proud to say we are second to no institution in the country when it comes to what we do for national security. Our agricultural research, Penn State Extension programs, we provide real-world solutions, access to research-based education and training with a presence in all 67 counties. Representatives, I want you to know that is not typical for even on every land-grant university. We are in every single county. Our expertise, most recently in the avian influenza, the worst outbreak since the 1980s, we are there to support the farmers who are impacted. Invent Penn State, another gem, free community resource, 24 locations statewide. This is not for anybody who has to have a Penn State affiliation. It's open to any Pennsylvanian. We've supported about close to 10,000 entrepreneurs, helped to start over 641 new companies, and we've created over 861 new jobs. To summarize, we need your partnership to continue to be strong and to get stronger to address these inequities. We drive job creation, economic development, student career success. And we cannot do that without your help and support. I look forward to answering further questions. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm John Fry, President of Temple University. I'm honored to be here today to address you on behalf of the university. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is instrumental in helping Temple fulfill its mission of ensuring that students from all backgrounds and all places receive access to the high-quality, affordable education that is a hallmark of our institution. I am very grateful for the support you provide to both Temple and our state-related peers, Penn State, Pitt, and Lincoln. And to each of you, I say thank you. A stronger and more competitive Temple and Pennsylvania go hand in hand and can be seen within the districts represented by committee members who are here with us today. Within your districts alone, there are more than 55,000 Temple students, employees, and alumni. So this is a time of great momentum at Temple. Earlier this year, we launched our strategic plan, Forward with Purpose, which will serve as our compass now and through our 150th anniversary in 2034. The plan underscores Temple's role as a trusted partner in Philadelphia and throughout the Commonwealth, and we are deeply committed to working alongside others and doing our part to help drive meaningful progress in education and economic development. To achieve this, we are focusing on three priorities: student success, research and action, and place-based impact. Some of this work is already underway. Student success is at the heart of everything we do, and we have intensified our efforts in this area. This past fall, we welcomed the largest ever first-year undergraduate class in our 141-year history, with 63% of those new students hailing from right here in Pennsylvania, and 48% of these students being the first in their families to attend college. We are committed to enhancing the infrastructure that supports our students and ensures they stay on a path to graduation and a life of opportunity and success after Temple. The centerpiece of research in action is the development of a multidimensional innovation corridor along Broad Street in Philadelphia to spur research and technology commercialization that will stretch from our health sciences campus to our main campus, and then south along Broad Street to the Avenue of the Arts and the new home of our Center City campus, Terra Hall. Our place-based strategy is evident through our commitment to enhancing public safety in our community. We recently shared the results of an independent staffing study conducted for our Department of Public Safety. As a result, we plan to significantly scale up our operations and hire more than 30 patrol officers and supervisors over the next 5 years. Our commitment to fostering economic mobility and workforce development can also be seen throughout the Commonwealth. This fall, we will open a state-of-the-art dental clinic and education center in Tamaqua, which will be key to providing rural Pennsylvanians with access to high-quality dental services. Similarly, our Lewis Katz School of Medicine is expanding its impact across the Commonwealth. We will soon establish a new regional medical campus in York in collaboration with WellSpan, creating a pipeline of healthcare providers to serve this important area of the state. We have already seen the benefits of this model through our partnership with St. Luke's, through which we opened the first and only 4-year medical school in the Lehigh Valley. These are just a few examples of the important work we are pursuing to implement our strategic plan. It is work that we can never have accomplished without your support. So once again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today and express my gratitude for your continued partnership to enable the success of Temple students. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Joan Gable, and I'm very proud to represent the University of Pittsburgh. Chairman Harris, Chairman Struzzi, members of the committee, we're very grateful for the opportunity to share with you and work together towards our common purpose of making sure that the students of the Commonwealth have every educational opportunity. We're very proud of our partnership with Pennsylvania. The Commonwealth's investment in Pitt enables the in-state student discount, which makes college education possible for thousands of Pennsylvanians who study at Pitt each year. Today, just to put that in context, the average in-state undergraduate student saves nearly $21,000 per year compared to their out-of-state counterparts as a result of your investment. It's a discount that wouldn't be possible, and we're very grateful for it, and I know our students are too. We're also very grateful for the legislature's creation of the State Board of Higher Education and the Performance-Based Funding Council. We are very appreciative of how this reflects a shared commitment to building a strong future for our students, to the workforce, to the economy, and of course to our institutions. And I also want to express appreciation for the opportunity to engage with you here in the communities that you represent. We're very proud of how this is informing our strategies, most obviously through our strategic plan, the Plan for Pitt 2028. Many of you gave input and feedback on the development of that plan. I hope you see yourselves in the way in which we're setting our priorities and delivering a very positive impact for our students and your constituents. We're also very proud to work together to make sure that Pitt is a great investment. Members of the committee, Pitt students are graduating at record rates. We're within the top 5% nationwide for graduation, and last year we had 96% placement for our graduates into either a job or graduate school, which is 10 percentage points higher than the national average. Nearly half of our undergraduates graduate entirely debt-free. And last year, well, actually a year and a half ago, we launched something called the Finish Line Grants, which are unique to the University of Pittsburgh and focus financial aid to students in their last 2 semesters, which is a very high-risk period for our students who have the highest need to make sure that they get over the finish line and graduate. As a result, Pitt grads add $5.4 billion to Pitt's overall $12 billion economic impact on the Commonwealth, but they're also building new rural and urban talent pipelines through high-skill, high-wage talent, the jobs they're able to enter, the companies that are being formed, and a host of community partnerships, not the least of which is a fun one with Sarah's Chocolates, which is in Canonsburg, and you have a little example of that at your desk. So we work together to make sure that pipeline stays strong, to make sure we're able to target unmet need, to serve our communities. For example, this year we launched a bachelor's degree in emergency medicine on our Bradford campus that responds to a very critical gap in frontline medical care, and now our students are out in McKean County delivering that care. We also have a rural outreach with our School of Dental Medicine, which involves training and regional training centers for dentists, but also hygienists and dental assistants, which improves the access to dental care in communities that need it the most. We launched our first 100% online degree in health informatics through our Pitt Edge portfolio, which I've testified about to you before, which is a new initiative to make sure that the highest workforce needs are being met wherever the students may want to access the education necessary to work in those high-demand areas. So we're very proud of how our shared work and partnership serves Pittsburgh, Bradford, Greensburg, Johnstown, Titusville, and obviously the entire Commonwealth at levels of excellence that you would expect at national and international levels. And we also recognize that you have a lot of decisions that you have to make, and we know that you have to weight those considerations. So we believe that our 3.7% appropriation increase is tied to inflation, is responsible, allows us to focus on that partnership and represent our commitments that you helped us craft through our strategic plan to provide affordable, world-class education to Pennsylvania students, and with great appreciation for the complexity of decisions that face you. This request is very specific to our general appropriation, and we're very proud to also have worked with the Bipartisan Performance-Based Funding Council to think about how Pitt, Penn State, and Temple can work in an incentivized way in the areas that we've collectively identified as the highest focus areas, high-demand careers, serving our students in those spaces. In short, we think this responsible increase request allows us to protect affordability for Pennsylvania students, maintain our excellence in ways that have yielded for the Commonwealth, and in ways that we know make the future very bright for all of higher education and all of the constituencies that we serve. So with that, I'll close by renewing my appreciation for your continued support. And with that, Mr. Chair, I look forward to our questions.
All right, thank you all. We're going to start with Representative Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Presidents and Chancellor. And three of you are going to get a little breather because my questions are for Dr. Fry this morning. President Fry, we were chatting a little bit, wanted to highlight some of the efficiencies that you've been building into the program and get your view on how that's been helping move forward with all the plans you kind of laid out in your opening statement there.
Thank you, Representative. I want to confess to a little bit of imposter syndrome. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a PhD. So just for the record here, thank you.
Fair.
Thanks for the promotion. I appreciate it. It's definitely not deserved. So Temple has been through a lot over the last decade. In 2017, our enrollment crested over 40,000. The day I started last year, it was a little over 30,000, 30,005 to be precise. So we've lost a lot of students. I'm going to talk about how we're building back enrollment in a second, but that necessitates aligning your expenses with your revenues when you've lost that much of your revenues, about almost 25%. So over the last 8 years, we've taken about $300 million of expense out of the institution. Now, you can't cut your way to success and victory. On the other hand, stewardship is the watchword here, and we need to be responsible stewards. So we've initiated a significant number of painful cuts. Last year, my first year, we did close to $40 million. Right now, we have a number of specific initiatives in place on the administrative side and the academic side. Just one example to your question, we just completed a faculty early retirement program. 77 faculty accepted the program, and the savings are $15 million in salary and benefits. So that's an example of some highly targeted work that we're doing to make sure that our faculty and our staff sort of align with where our enrollment is. We're looking at the four corners of the institution relative to expense reductions, and at the same time, I have good news relative to our first-year class. Last year in September, we welcomed the largest class in our history, 5,479, 48% of whom were the first in their families to go to college, 51% of whom were Pell eligible. So last year and the year before, we had two record-breaking classes. This year, we're about 12% up in applications and over 10% up in deposits. So I can't tell you what the number is going to be right now, but I can tell you that we're starting to build back enrollment. It's going to take us many years to get to where we need to be. I'd be very happy if we eventually got ourselves into the 33,000 to 35,000 level, this, by the way, excludes our work in Japan. We have 3 campuses in Japan, 1 in Rome. That accounts for another close to 4,000 students. But the number I'm working with right now is about 29,500. That's the domestic enrollment. That's what we're sort of focused on right now. And so from a revenue standpoint, I think between that, the outstanding performance of our endowment, which is a top decile endowment, and 2 very, very strong years of recent fundraising, we're starting to make it back on the revenue side. But right now, we're under intense pressure to continue to look at the expense side, to continue to balance our budget without using too many of our reserves. So it's a tight position now. I hope to be able to report back to you in the years to come that we're continuing to make progress on that.
Well, congratulations on that revenue side, and we look forward to those future reports. And just with the remaining time, I know you had talked about the investment in the community and, you know, the Broad Street corridor. Has there, I know you've been in the position now, is it 2 years? Has there been any milestone there that you're particularly proud of?
It's been 14 months, although it often feels like 2 years or more. I would say that first is that I think we have a very, very clear plan of what we need to do. We basically are focused on Broad Street from Center City to the edge of our health sciences campus. That's about 5 miles. We're not attempting to develop all of Broad Street in those areas, but around the 3 nodes of Center City campus, main campus, health sciences campus, we've made a couple of very important strategic acquisitions of properties that frankly have been trouble properties. Fair amount of crime around those. We've taken those over, we've cleaned those up, we're getting them ready for development. We have a couple of RFPs out right now to partner with qualified developers to help us make investments, particularly in some STEM-based commercial work that we're doing around some properties that can be renovated for science and for tech transfer. And then secondly, we'd like to construct another residence on campus because we really don't have enough beds on our campus, and I think that'll contribute to the safety and the security of our environment, and also I think will help with retention. So we're testing the market right now. If we can get some third-party investments to come our way, I think that'll be sort of early indication that this idea of an innovation corridor on Broad Street has some legs. But again, you know, given our situation right now, we are completely reliant on making these partnerships, which I think is actually good for the soul of the institution because we get to work with others, get to exchange ideas with them, hopefully see their investment come our way. So I'd say right now the vision is clear. We're infilling with certain acquisitions of properties, and we're starting to test the development market, and I'll keep you posted.
Great, thank you. We look forward to that all coming to fruition.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thanks, gentlemen. Representative Mako.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Doctor, President, Doctor.
I'm not a doctor either, actually. Sorry.
If someone goes down for medical reasons, we'll still call 911. So my first question, I got a couple quick questions for you all. Each one of you have submitted your budget requests this year. I'm a huge supporter of higher ed. I think most of the people in this chamber are, most people that are listening, whether it's vocational, skilled, or degrees. Expanding your knowledge and increasing learning, continuing learning is great. I can say the one thing, and we're talking about higher ed, is always top of mind is tuition freezes it's always kind of creeping up. And so for average constituents, they're always wondering about tuition freeze for institutions. One of the things that concerned me about the governor's budget is that he proposed to flat fund you all in his upcoming budget. Can you all just quickly speak about what that would do to increase tuition on not only out-of-state, but I'm sure in-state Pennsylvanians trying to go to your world-renowned schools? Just real quick, what kind of tuition increase that's going to put on Pennsylvanians?
We're still developing our budget. We are anticipating a tuition increase. We have held tuition increases below inflation for, we've measured back 10 years, so at least for that period of time.
Appreciate that.
Which is resulting in a very heavy constraint on other strategic investments that we're able to make. The math is relatively clear that when you hold tuition or hold appropriations flat in an inflationary environment, expenses continue to go up, and we have to figure that out somehow, and so that has resulted in tuition increases.
Gotcha. You don't have a number, but it's guaranteed that it's going to increase.
Yeah,
Modestly, yes.
we're in a range right now. We're working on our budget. Likewise, we're in a range of between 3.6 and 3.9% increase is what we're looking at. Part of the reason we asked for 16% increase in appropriation is to eliminate that for in-state residents, so we can charge nothing more than we charge right now. So that's the only focus of our increases, to try to avoid passing that along to our students.
Appreciate that.
We moved to a 2-year budget model because when budgets are delayed in being passed, it puts pressure on us, and for families, it creates uncertainty. So our budget rates for 26-27 have already been approved. What we are proud of is on our Commonwealth campuses, once again, we have no increases at all. That would be like the 4th year. But for our University Park in-state, every year it's been sub-inflation. It'll be about 2% increase. The other thing I would like to point out, which we are proud of, is that if you adjust for inflation, students at Penn State are now paying $1,000 less than they were a decade ago. So because we've kept all increases sub-inflation, and we've seen no increases in appropriations.
No, I appreciate that. And if you could get your updated numbers to us later on so we can take a look at that, just so we know and we have those numbers. Appreciate it. Next quick circuit answers real quick. We've implemented the performance-based funding. If you all could just quickly speak on what you're doing and how that's affected your budget.
This is a passion for me, so my colleagues are looking to me knowing I would answer that. I have been a strong proponent of performance-based funding everywhere I've been because it ties the goals of the Commonwealth, you as stewards of taxpayer dollars, and our mission and what we are trying to do. So very, very supportive of it. Eventually, I hope performance-based funding, first we need to get the funding, then we need to make it truly performance-based. And I'm very proud of the bipartisan work that was done.
Now, that means a lot to us in here allocating funds to you to make sure that these funds are being used as efficiently as possible, especially, well, we all know what's going on with the budget, scraping the bottom of the barrel. So greatly appreciate that. Last quick question. Given the state of affairs around the world, are any of your campuses working on like micro nuclear reactors? And if so, can you speak on that, or as far as renewable energy?
I'm happy and proud to speak about this. Penn State has the first, oldest, continuously running nuclear reactor in the country. So we're very proud of that. It's 75 years. And so the next phase, of course, is these micronuclear reactors. We are working on maybe partnering with Westinghouse and others. It's a very expensive proposition.
For sure.
But I think for Pennsylvania, given that we've had this history, investing in it would be very critical, and we're trying. We're trying to see where we can get there. I worry because other states that are appropriating more might beat us to it.
And just one comment on that, Mr. Chairman. I know the military is looking at supplying their electricity for their bases with these micro nuclear reactors. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know, sad face. I know, I'm sorry.
Thank the gentleman. Representative Khan.
Thank you, Chairman Harris. Thank you, Presidents. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your work. So across the nation, over the last several decades, we've seen a decline in union membership. There should be no confusion that what we've been seeing with workers, decreased satisfaction on the jobs, more of a wealth gap between people who are struggling at the bottom and the people who are the millionaires and the billionaires in the world. And we're seeing this gap continue to widen. There is something that's promising. We're seeing sort of a new day of unionization. More people are unionizing, and we're seeing this in universities. Faculty are starting to unionize. My question is for you all, but I'd like to start with Dr. Benaputi, because we're seeing this SEIU. I know they've organized about 5,700 faculty workers. Will you commit not to use any university funds or taxpayer money or any other resources to discourage people from exercising their democratic right to join a union?
Yes.
Yes, we're all fully represented already, so.
Yeah, we have 11 unions. I think great relationships with all of them. We're working through a contract now with our graduate students, and I think we're in a good place with them as well.
My faculty is already unionized in my clerical staff and my police.
Thank you. And my second question is, will you commit to not using resources, whether it's university resources, whether it's taxpayer dollars, on misinformation, on convincing people why it's not a good idea to join a union?
I think yes.
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 Okay, thank you. My second question, I talked to some individually about what we're seeing, some of the political headwinds coming from Washington. We see that with H.R. 1 that was passed on July 4th of last year, reclassifying what's considered professional, a professional degree. I'm a nurse, as is Representative from Lackawanna, Representative Kozarowski, and nursing apparently is no longer a professional degree, according to H.R. 1. Also, some people are surprised that professions like architecture, professions like being a physical therapist, physician assistant, is no longer, or a social worker is no longer considered a professional degree. Can you talk about the impact that this has had on your students and also on the workforce that we're providing here in the Commonwealth? And what, if anything, you're able to do to sort of counteract those headwinds coming out of Washington?
I'll start. You're correct, Representative, that there have been categorizations of what constitutes a professional degree and the resulting financial aid, very low-cost financial aid that you have access to as a result. And many of the fields that were left off of the list are high demand, high workforce, high need, high community impact fields, all the ones that you described, several others in healthcare. Social workers, teachers are not considered professional. It was a list that would have looked quite different had it been consulted, I think, with representatives from higher education or from the professional associations or unions. We are advocating very actively in DC, and there is the possibility of that list being amended. We're very hopeful about that, both as individual institutions and also through our national organizations like the Association for Public and Land-Grant Universities, or AAU, the Association for American Universities, which across represent many of the professional programs that are affected by this change. But in the meantime, we don't want to see the dip in enrollment because it's very hard to dig back out once you see that valley hit in these fields. And so we're working very closely on our own resources. We already award a lot of internal financial aid, and we're looking at the strategic allocation of that financial aid. We're working very closely philanthropically, individual donors, foundations, working in partnership with the professional associations to make sure that we maintain enrollment in these programs, because to a program, they're very high workforce need areas.
We got the yellow light, so I think we only have one more, right? 14 seconds.
All I'll say is H.R. 1, for the reasons that Chancellor Gabel just articulated, has been devastating, or potentially could be devastating. But on top of that, our Temple University health system is facing $520 million worth of cuts over the next 10 years in Medicaid funding to an already poor population. So you take this and you add just the core funding for the 6 hospitals that we run underneath TUHS, and I mean, the impact of H.R. 1 is devastating. I'm not being dramatic.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank the gentleman, Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome, everyone. It's always great to see you here. As a father of 7 with 4 kids in college, you know, my wife, Sweet Sue, and I have really, you know, we felt the pain. They're starting to launch and they're starting to graduate with great careers, you know, so we've had students attend a number of your universities and others. I'd like to dig a little bit deeper first in the area of the performance-based funding formula. President Gable, you had mentioned the performance-based, in your opening remarks, and retention or placement rates, I think, are one of those metrics. It was great to hear 97%. The governor has $30 million proposed in his budget. And it's a newer program, bipartisan. President Bennett Beauty, you had mentioned that. Next Friday, the Performance-Based Funding Council begins to meet again. And have your universities been supplying the information that is needed to be able to start to look at how this formula is going to be moving forward? What have you found through this process, and have you been satisfied with where we are right now?
I want to say, I'll affirm what President Ben Deputy said, that I think this was a remarkably allied effort bipartisan across the institutions. It's really, it's just really nice to see everyone on the same page and so now we're excited to see it unfold. I think, I know that you'll see some really clear outcomes as a result of the transparency and clarity with which the development of the formula relied upon. We have been very actively engaged in providing all the information asked of us, and would obviously continue to very happily provide that information and advocacy. We're delighted to see it in the budget. We hope that that sticks, if you will. And we think what you'll see as a result is even more enrollment in the high demand, high workforce need areas at manageable, affordable cost with good graduation rates and good placement, which is what we all want.
That's great to hear. I know we're tight on time, so as we're advancing, I'm a believer in competition is healthy, having those metrics in that priority. Would your universities be interested in, for future funding, or adjusting, the current state-related funding, which is often very controversial in the chamber, to begin to roll out through the Performance-Based Funding Commission, or portions of it?
Absolutely. I think that's something we would all want to be part of in discussions, make sure that it's collegial and it's collaborative. But I genuinely, like you, I believe that's the right thing, to send the signal to us on what matters to you, and then to hold us accountable to it. That's all we ask for.
That's great to hear. Another new program that was bipartisan was the Grow PA Scholarship. It's new to Pennsylvania. I think it's going to be right around $32 million that are going to students for, as you had mentioned, these high demand careers. That program is new as well. So I wanted to specifically ask about the CIP codes, or the classification of instructional programs. From your point of view, are there adjustments? I mean, I'm fortunate to serve on the FIA board. Everybody is learning. Are there some adjustments or tweaks that we may be able to make in this program moving forward? Because it really seems to help families.
I applaud the program. I think it's wonderful. It's exactly what we need. But sorry, if I may have 1 minute to explain this. The CIP, which is very helpful to mark where a student is 6 digits. The first 2 are your major area. The second 2 are intermediate. The last 2 are the specific program you're going to. We discovered that by the way we code the CIP for some of our students, that they were not getting the money that they ought to in the pre-major level. Once they get to their majors, it's no problem, because it's very clear what they're studying in the pre-major. So we are adjusting things internally at Penn State, as I'm sure my colleagues are. One ask of FIA is to also help us, because some things, as with any system, it's not perfect. I will tell you that 14 is the CIP for engineering. So if it's 14.0000, that's called engineering general. That is approved by FIA. But if it's 1.0000, one is agriculture, that is not approved. So we need reform on our side to make sure we are coding it appropriately, but we also need help from FIA to change those when we are eager to work together.
Yeah, that's great.
It's a great program. I'm fully supportive.
I see my red lights on, so thanks. I look forward to working with each of you in that area. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank the gentleman. Representative Young.
Good morning, everybody. Admittedly, this is one of my favorite hearings, simply because I'm just a mom who happens to be now a legislator, but my work started out as a mom, a passionate mom, because I have yet to meet a mom who said they did not want the best for their children. And now that both my children are college age and one is attending one of your universities up there now, I will say, it's important to make sure that we're creating spaces that the families can feel comfortable and knowing that when we're sending our children out of the households, that they're also walking into a community of safety. So leading with that question and with the rise of so many concerns around student safety on campuses, can you tell us some of the efforts you're doing to ensure that the students are safe on your campuses?
Well, let me start with the most fundamental, which is public safety. So we exist in a part of Philadelphia, North Philadelphia, which is high crime. And so one of the things that we did a number of years ago was hire former police commissioner Charles Ramsey to do a full audit of Temple University's public safety practices. He came back with 77 recommendations. We've implemented about 98% of those recommendations. We'll have the rest done this year. But probably the most important recommendation that was deferred, in part because I think of some budget concerns, was, appropriate staffing for the Division of Public Safety. And so when I arrived last year, I had that study completed. We've now initiated efforts to hire 29 patrol officers and about 8 other supervisory officers, from captains to sergeants to detectives. It'll take us a number of years because it's really hard to recruit and retain police right now, but we're on the street with all sorts of opportunities. And then really importantly, Commissioner Kevin Bethel, our police commissioner in Philadelphia, on the strength of that is adding 7 full-time people to the Temple campus and basically embedding them on our campus. So we're going to be up 40% in terms of policing, and that's before we even talk about security technology and all the other investments we're making in training for our students. But the thing I just want to say to you is that, to me, the most important thing, other than strong public safety, police, and security, is to making sure that our streets are active and engaged and full of people. And the way you do that is you develop. So we're also on a significant, as I pointed out before in a previous question, this innovation corridor is not just about progress in science and technology and economic development. It's about making these corridors safe. And in many cases, when when stores are vacant and when there's not enough residences and things of that nature, those streets are daunting at night, and that's where we see a fair amount of the crime. And so we're working not only on safety in the traditional way, but improving the public and commercial environment as well. Those things together, based on my experience, especially in West Philadelphia, should yield some results, not tomorrow, but over time.
Thank you.
So I would like to answer, because even in the rural, out of the way places, Lincoln University, we were unfortunately visited by the gun violence that is just so endemic in our society today. And it's a wake-up call that even if you're, you don't have to be in the inner city for gun violence to actually visit your campus. And so I can say that over the 9 years that I've been at Lincoln, we've done a lot to improve security and safety on our campus, simply because, you just have to be mindful of that. But after the tragic events that happened at my homecoming, we've gone a bit further. And the thing that's most important about the implementation of some new changes after that event is that we now have a really great, strong partnership between my campus police, state police, EMTs in the area, and fire. And so for once, we've all come to the table at the same time and worked out a collaborative partner plan so that when we have, especially large events on our campus, we can count on not just the resources that the university can provide, but the resources that are also provided by other state, county, and township resources. So we are praying that that plan helps us to at least bring back the semblance of safety that we have felt for so many, for over a century or so on our campus.
All right, I'm gonna let you other two, you can email me those answers. I just have one more, really quick. One more question.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. 30 seconds. So with the federal challenges continuing all your strides in creating the strong classrooms to career pipeline for students, how have the federal charges impacted the programs and initiatives thus far? All right, you can email me those questions as well.
I'm happy to answer. I just want to make sure I understand in which, do you mean academic programs or safety programs?
Whichever programs you are, which were greatly impacted by the cuts or the challenges from the federal level.
The biggest impact that we've experienced at Pitt was the uncertainty around federal funding for research, which was a roller coaster of change and advocacy. Where we stand today is flat in federal funding for research, which is frankly better than we had thought we would be at when I sat before you this time last year, but reflects that over the last several years we've had pretty significant increases year over year as the quality and focus of our researchers gets better year over year, keeping in mind that this research is on healthcare and curing cancer and resolving diabetes and ALS, which this body line item funded to our great appreciation. That is the biggest direct impact, and so we appreciate shared advocacy for the importance of that support.
Thank you.
Thank the gentlelady, Representative Alsumer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here today. I'm here today to talk a little bit or hear what you have to say about workforce development. Can you give us an update on what your universities are doing to make sure the education programs you are offering are meeting the needs of employers, both in our local communities and throughout the Commonwealth, and specifically what you're doing with respect to the enhancement of AI?
Boy, you asked a question that would, that hits on a lot of points that we are all wrestling with and are truly committed to. Workforce development is part and parcel of what we do, and we have to embrace that. We do more than that. We educate citizens for a democracy. We contribute in so many ways, but that's central to what we do. We have completed a portfolio review. We call it our academic program and portfolio review. Pretty holistic look at everything Penn State does, every single course, every single program. And we're working on how do we assess, and part of that was also getting data on what are the needs, not just of the community, but of Pennsylvania and the nation, and how are we aligning it. I think that's good practice. We ought to do that. We did it on our own, and we intend to continue that. A second thing that we're really focused on is how do we make sure every single student gets experiences outside the classroom, sir? Because when you think about preparation for the workforce, it's not just your grades that you get in the classroom. Do they have an internship? Do they have an undergraduate research experience? Those factors set our students apart. So one of the things we are very focused on right now is what do we do with those first-generation college students, low-income college students, who might not know or might not have the resources to take unpaid internships, as an example, that look good on their resume. So we are really laser-focused on expanding opportunities for the 88,000 students we serve. One last thing, I have to put in a plug. Part of our portfolio, I'm very proud, is the Pennsylvania College of Technology. So when we think about workforce readiness, that's a model where it's directly applicable. And lastly, I would say, I'm very proud of our College of Liberal Arts. So when you think about workforce readiness, it's not just the engineering and the nursing, it is the arts and the humanities. But we need to say, it's our job to show the students and employers how it works in tandem, to translate what you learn into the skills that people are looking for in the workforce. AI, we've launched a big initiative in everything, from teaching to research, and equally importantly to our administrative functions. We can cut costs and be more efficient through AI. We have a whole program, and I'm happy to send that to you. But thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a great question, and we love that one. So we have as a key metric in our strategic plan, which many of you provided input on, that we're looking at the statistics of the highest workforce need areas and supporting programs and graduating students into those areas. And there's a direct correlation between that and our very high placement rate at consistently in the high 90s. And it's also a contributing factor to how many of our students stay in the Commonwealth, which is we're a good net importer of talent into the Commonwealth. So that chugs along very strongly, and that's why you saw such unified advocacy in the performance-based funding model around workforce development and workforce demand. On AI specifically, we have a group working on this. I forget what the acronym stands for, but of course they made it spell HAIL, which at Pitt is a word that we like to use a lot. That looks at the general education so that regardless of area of study, you have a competency in this space. The other academic programs that are very obviously tied in, like computer science and engineering, but also business and healthcare across the board. We've put a real pin in the map on the intersection of health and AI as Pitt. And we also have Pitt GPT with lots of cybersecurity firewalls to create large language model on campus. And then lastly, we've launched something called Digital Futures, which is to take all of this know-how that we're developing into the community engagement centers that we have, and specifically into K through 12.
One last question. What new programs or majors have you developed over the past year to meet the workforce and involving AI in that as well?
So our main effort in that space is under the umbrella of Pitt Edge. This is a whole new program for us to serve as an umbrella under which, and the most complete launch there, we've added to some of our nursing degrees and other allied health areas, but we've launched the health informatics degree, which is a 100% online degree and includes all of the AI components, just as one example.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank the gentleman. Representative Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Presidents. So my first question is for Penn State, and it's going to be a sort of a full circle. One of our first appropriations hearings was with the Department of Agriculture, and obviously there has been a lot of work going into response to high-path avian influenza across the Commonwealth, and as our only land-grant institution with such wide reach into the agricultural community, I was wondering how Penn State is helping to respond to high-path avian influenza and try to, save the birds we have yet on the market, and how Penn State is assisting in that response with the Department of Agriculture and others.
Thank you very much for that question. And again, I want to begin by acknowledging how difficult it has been on our farmers. That's just been truly devastating, the worst in a few decades. Penn State is involved in every step, as you might imagine. We are the emergency responders for this. So whether it's the surveillance, diagnostics, biosecurity, the depopulation, disposal, and most importantly, continuity of operations. These are the 6 buckets we think about. We are working around on this 24/7, I would say. And we're proud to partner with the state in trying to help, especially on the continuity of operations.
And thank you for that work. I know it's, we heard from Secretary Redding, and it has been truly devastating, so we appreciate our farmers, and I think we are doing the best we can to help farmers recover and to be able to rebuild their flocks and things like that. So we have a market here in the Commonwealth, and we continue to remain a leader in those sectors. My second question is around college athletics, and just for 3 of you compete at the Division I level, high level, major college athletics. I'm wondering for each of you, how have you handled all of the changes that we've seen in the college athletics landscape with name, image, and likeness, transfer portal? I know President Trump just sort of had a summit with about 40-odd people it was mostly confined to college football, but I'm just curious about how, because it's a major economic driver for a lot of your regions. So how are you handling all of that landscape and those changes as well?
I would say that it's been a very challenging issue for all of us. It's changing every single day. But one of the things I'm proud of at Penn State is that we truly are one of less than a handful of programs in the entire country where athletics is self-sustaining. No one else can claim that, and certainly even within the state, I can tell you that. In terms of, for us, for athletics, not $1 you give us for appropriations or from the university goes to athletics. Not $1 of our student tuition goes to athletics. Something that's truly unique is no student fee for athletics. I'm not, we don't subsidize the athletics. My fear is unless we get control over this, if that changes. I come and proudly ask you for appropriations because I can guarantee you we don't even have student fees for athletics, and we don't subsidize that. So that is a concern, a growing concern for us.
Maybe a little bit counterintuitive, but I think we have to sort of go back to basics and make sure, first and foremost, that our student athletes are students first, that they're graduating, that they have an opportunity to study abroad, that they have meaningful work opportunities. And so I've tried to recenter our athletics department around that principle, and then everything else flows from there. And to your question, I think Neely captured it, it's very confusing, it's changing, it's unbelievably expensive, and for Temple University, it's not affordable. So we're doing our best to sort of hang into our conference and do the reasonable amount that we can, but we can't go beyond that. And I worry down the road what that's going to mean for our competitiveness. So for institutions like Temple, which are sort of under-resourced in athletics, it's a really tough time. All the more reason why we have to remain true to the cause of making sure our student athletes have a great academic experience as well.
Sure.
I'll double down on that. We have a student-centered philosophy for our 600 some odd student athletes to ensure that they have an excellent educational experience and that we are competitive. That is part of our excellence too. We also do not use any of our appropriation to support the enterprise, but it is, as President Fry described, one of the most dizzying, rapidly changing, unsettled areas of ground that we are coping with. But I've always said and very much believe that athletics is the front porch of the university. In many ways, it's the first form of engagement. It's how many of our alums stay engaged. It's how a lot of kids realize that they appreciate the opportunity that higher education offers them. And we want it to be a very nice front porch. And so we're working really hard to figure out how to get this into a condition where it is manageable for all of us and also still competitive and excellent.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank the gentleman. Representative Rigby.
Thank you, Chairman Harris. Good morning, panel. Thank you for joining us. Community colleges are an entry point to higher education for many Pennsylvanians. And many community college students subsequently enroll in four-year institutions to complete their degrees. We discussed this at last year's hearing, and the idea of a 2+2 programs came up, which are programs where a student can get a 2-year associate's degree at a community college and then be admitted into a program at a university to finish a 4-year bachelor's degree. Does each of your universities have at least one articulation agreement with the community college?
Multiple.
Yes, we do. And in fact, last time I believe I shared, we now have articulation agreements with every single community college, so it's a simple form that everyone can use.
Yes, multiple agreements.
At least a half dozen.
Do you have other arrangements such as reverse transfer agreements, dual admissions, or any other initiatives with the PA community colleges?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we all do.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Cool. Thank the gentleman. Representative Abney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here today. My questions are for Chancellor Gable. Well, first and foremost, thank you for the Panther Paws treats. I typically don't eat things like this as I plan for the summertime, but I will make an exception today. But wanted to see if you can give us a little bit of an update. You touched on it briefly in your opening remarks about the plan for Pitt 2028. Could you give us a little bit more insight on where we are in that plan and kind of what we can look forward to over the next couple of years with it?
Yes, thank you, Representative, and thank you for honoring the institution with carbohydrates. We're very glad to see that commitment. So the plan for Pitt focuses first and foremost on students and their success, on the research enterprise, which is such a cornerstone for us, on fiscal accountability and transparency, being a place where everyone can succeed, and then also doing appropriate, curated, strategic risk in places that make sense for an institution like ours, where we are and where we have our strengths. So on the student success side, as we've testified to before, we're going to have another record year in terms of applications and demand for the institution. We will have a very strong showing from the Commonwealth, which makes up more than 60% of our enrollment, but also very strong out-of-state demand. We have record high graduation rates and also record high placement rates. Those are all metrics in the strategic plan. We have maintained our research enterprise, and even in some very specific areas around health sciences, seen growth. All of that research not only leads to treatments and cures, which can impact every single person, but also to a very high amount of commercialization and reinvestment and redeployment that way in startups and enterprises that then create professional and economic development opportunities. We've been your partner on fiscal transparency, and we think we've made a lot of progress there. And then we've made some very specific strategic investments like the BioForge initiative, which we've talked to you about before, which is an incredible facility in Hazelwood Green, an area that was suffering with the departure of the steel industry, where you're now seeing bespoke development, AI-powered, of pharmaceuticals for rare diseases. So you have PhDs and doctors doing the scientific research, you have workforce running the manufacturing, we have educational opportunities, and we're putting a community engagement center there. So sort of that real, check of what a research university engaged in its community can do. And those were all metrics under the strategic plan.
Yep. And I'm fortunate the BioForge Center is in Hazelwood is in my district, so I have the pleasure of being able to represent it. But you kind of led into my next question around Pitt being an anchor economic institution in the Commonwealth. I know we just put out a economic impact study or report in the past couple of years that said that Pitt generates about $6.6 billion in economic impact for the Commonwealth. And then when you add into the alumni network, it's closer to $11 billion. I think you mentioned today, we talked about the undergrads, closer to $12 billion. And for about every dollar that the state puts into Pitt, we get a little over $43 back into the state economy. You're building in Pennsylvania, you're purchasing in Pennsylvania, you're hiring in Pennsylvania. Can you talk a little bit more about the economic impact that Pitt has annually on the Commonwealth?
Yes, I mean, all of those numbers, obviously, we're very proud of and humbly recognize that they don't happen on our own, that it's also part of the investment that we're here talking to you about today. But that's, I think, when we think about what a university does in its community, we always are anchored in our students and their educational opportunities and focusing them towards high-demand areas so that they have full social mobility, they have an amazing experience, they learn something they wouldn't otherwise know, they grow, they get a job, where we don't lose sight of that. But there are so many layers beyond that those students bring, that their families bring, that the fans to our games bring, that the patients to our hospitals bring, that the research investment, that the federal dollars we were talking about earlier creates. Every one of those dollars comes back as almost $3 locally in the communities where they are received. And so when we're at our best self, our commitment to service is not just impactful in people's lives, but it has real ROI. And we're very proud of that and want to continue to deliver in that way.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
Getting ready for the summer is wild. I just want to put that out there. That was hilarious.
Everyone needs chocolate to get ready for the summer, sir.
Representative Flood.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. AI is something that everyone is talking about. It's everywhere. It can be an exciting tool used to make our lives easier, or there's a potential to use it for evil. People worry that it's going to replace their jobs. I hear it time and time again where they're worried that those who work in the IT industry, in the financial institutions, in the health systems, just to name a few, that their jobs are going to be replaced. So it's definitely important that we have some parameters placed around AI technology at some level, but we don't want to quell the potential of how it can improve our lives and the amazing places that we could potentially go and the things that we can achieve where we were only once able to dream about. But let's talk about AI and how it's affecting your universities. So what kind of AI research is happening at your universities? And do your institutions have university-wide policies on the use of AI in the classrooms? Or is that something left up to individual departments or instructors? And if we could, I'd like to hear from all of you, but I want to start with Lincoln.
Thank you. We're bringing forward an AI policy, but we've already started to integrate it into our student journey. So through a very generous program with IBM, all of our first-year students have to complete a first-level course on AI certification in terms of its use. And once they complete that course, they have the opportunity to go on and take several levels of AI certifications with IBM, so we're very happy about that. We use it a lot in administrative work. In fact, I have to admit that I just learned yesterday how cool Copilot is, and now I'm hooked. So, you know, it really helps to get through some of the tasks we have to do. In the classroom, it can be a great learning tool, and so we have all kinds of learning opportunities for faculty to better integrate. When we first heard about AI, most people were concerned about making sure people couldn't use it to cheat, and now we're trying to understand how we can use it to enhance learning. And then the last thing I want to say about that is that I think about AI in the same way I did with the internet, right? We thought the internet was going to take away every job that the library ever had, and in fact, the invention of AI actually puts pressure on universities to figure out what the next skill up will need to be. Because AI, you know, it's just AI, it's still a technology. And so how can a university prepare the workforce for the next level of work that needs to be done once we integrate AI, which I think is much more of a question of curriculum as opposed to a threat to what we do.
Thank you. One of the things that we are doing is making sure that starting in 2026, every single student in every single class has that exposure to AI so that by the time they graduate in 4 years, whether they're a poet or a philosopher, it doesn't matter, they would understand the basics of AI. So I'm very proud of that, to be able to do it at that scale, because we have many dedicated programs and majors, but this is how do we catch the student who may not know that they need to be exposed to it. I completely agree with President Allen. This is here to stay. So remember, Plato worried about teaching you and me how to write, right? At the time, he said, humans are learning writing. This was the end of the world. So every time new technology comes along, we worry about it. But you also asked about research. We're very proud of the place that Penn State holds. It's every area of our research. It's not just healthcare. It's learning where the stars are. It's engineering. It's national security. It's everywhere. We are focusing on ethical use of AI. What are the limits of AI? And while entry-level jobs are going away, that's what people say, no, there'll always be entry-level jobs. You have to start somewhere. The expectations of what you do in those first years or two are changing. It's in law, it's in architecture, it's every field. So we are really hoping to double down on what we do with the students to develop them as human beings and to stay ahead, because the AI cannot replace. Our provost is fond of quoting, AI will not replace humans, but humans who understand AI will replace humans that don't.
Are you concerned that students are using it in the classroom to cheat? Or how can you guarantee that they are submitting work that's their own?
One of the things we all need to own up to in academia is that we don't give them clear guidelines. The students are way ahead in some areas, there's no question. So we are coming up with policies that have a red light, yellow light, green light. What courses is it allowed in? For what projects is it allowed? I teach a course. I actually encourage my students and say, ask AI to debate this from the perspective of different philosophers. And then what did you come up with? So we need to say, how do you use it ethically, safely, and what are the constraints?
Thank you so much.
Thank the gentlelady, Representative Malagari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all of our university presidents and chancellor for being with us today. Appreciate it. Want to ask first off a question for President Bendapudi. I want to ask about the facilities at Penn State for the dormitories and student housing, and what is going on with regard to trying to upgrade and update some of the older buildings? We know that some of these buildings have had challenges in the past, either sprinklers bursting in them, fires happening, students being displaced, maybe heat going out during some sub-zero temperatures. What is the university doing to make sure that those facilities are upgraded and updated so that the students have a safe and clean living environment to be in?
Thank you, sir. This is a very high priority for us. Deferred maintenance doesn't always get the attention that it deserves, but we have really prioritized it. So across our whole, between University Park and all the campuses, we have over 1,200 buildings. And so we need to be able to maintain them. For our students, we have a schedule. We've gone through residence halls and said these are being renovated. Many of them have been, many more have to come online. But that's, again, why we ask for investments, because we're very grateful for what you do for us, but that's the sort of thing that we need support for to make sure that we're keeping up with where we need to be.
I appreciate hearing that. Would be looking to work with you to try and find more of those solutions to some of these issues. The second question I have, and my final question for all of you, this covers public transportation. You're not here in a transportation hearing, however, you do rely on public transportation in where your universities have a footprint, either it be at your main campus or at one of your satellite locations. How important is it for your facilities and your institutions to see the actual investment and maintained investment within public transportation across the Commonwealth? I know there's a large footprint within the Philadelphia region, also within Penn State's Abington campus, Temple Ambler campus, and many others in Pittsburgh as well, and also where our facilities are across the Commonwealth. So if each of you can speak to that a little bit for your respective institutions, that would be appreciated.
I'll start and be brief. For us, it's mission critical. We have at least 12,000 people a day who are getting back and forth to Temple every day by public transport, by SEPTA, buses, and rail. It's absolutely essential because, you know, when there was the threat of a shutdown, it would overwhelm our campus with cars, which we wouldn't be able to park. And so for us, a lifeblood from an economic development standpoint and certainly from a quality of life standpoint.
Thank you for that.
Same, Representative. We sent a letter of support last year in support of PRT. They're critically important to obviously our faculty and staff, but also our students. We have a lot of students who commute in the health sciences in particular because they're going all over the city to get to their clinical environments. And so it's into Oakland, but also it's out from Oakland. We're very reliant on public transportation.
We have almost none, which makes it hard for our students to actually do work in the community. If you can just get one bus coming in from Philly once a day, we would be very happy. So let us know what we can do.
Thank you for mentioning that.
And for us in Abington, that, as you said, is a concern. But most of the students at University Park rely on it to some extent as well.
Thank you for that. Would there be a devastating effect on the university staff, faculty staff, if there wasn't any further opportunity for upgrades or continued transportation funding for those modes of transportation?
I mean, after fighting so hard to get people back to campus working, you know, all week, we would have to start thinking about remote again, which I think would undermine so much of the progress that we've made in building back communities. So this would be a terrible setback for us.
Would it be an economic impact to the area and the region of which your universities sit?
Absolutely, because if those people aren't coming in every day, you know, to campus, they're not going to be, you know, having lunch or dinner or you know, buying things around campus and things like that. So yes, it would melt away the economic impact at precisely a time when we're trying to build that up. How am I going to recruit, you know, retailers and hotels and other, you know, commercial activity to Broad Street if no one's going to be there.
I appreciate your answers. Thank you for your responses. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank the gentleman. Representative Barton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, panel. I'm glad you're here. Appreciate your testimony. I'd like to direct my opening question to President Fry. President Fry, and my grandmother used to say, when God closes a door, he opens a window. In Schuylkill County, we say now that when God closes a Rite Aid, he opens a Temple Dental Clinic. That's not really true, but that's what I say. And candidly, it's been a real pleasure to work with Temple Dental Dean Ishmael, Senator Argyle, Congressman Muser, Tamaqua Community Partnership and the Morgan Foundation to bring Temple Dental Clinic to Tamaqua, Pennsylvania. And it's a great, just a great situation where we have multiple groups working together for the common good. And I think it's rural health in general is a real concern. And Temple Dental's investment and Temple's investment in rural dentistry shows great vision and accountability. Do you know, President Fry, do you know what Temple's investment is in the Temple Dental Clinic in Tamaqua? Do you know that answer?
Representative, if I can just maybe go through the capital stack, because I think it's instructive in terms of the partners that we have involved with this effort. So the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development is contributing $4.5 million. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, $2 million. The Tamaqua City Revitalization and Improvement Zone, $2.5 million loan. The Morgan Foundation, $2 million. And we pick up the balance and go at risk for the rest,
right,
which I suspect is going to be in the sort of $2 to $3 million level. But the fact that we have 5 committed partners to sort of lift this thing off the ground is great. And then the thing I'm excited about is that the 10 dental students who will start working in Tamaqua in the fall are going to have residential accommodations there. And our hope is that they're going to become residents in Schuylkill County one day and be the next generation of dentists. So the idea is not just to give them a great opportunity to work in Tamaqua, to serve your citizens, but also to incent them, to buy a home there, live there, raise their families there, and continue to be of service to the community. So it's a model public-private or public-public partnership, if you will.
Yeah, and we're incredibly excited about that, and it brings a lot of economic vitality to the community as well. Let me ask you this. Do you know, just on Temple Dental as a whole, do you know how much of the state's appropriation goes to Temple Dental?
So our $158 million is basically all for student financial aid. So the answer is nothing.
Okay.
Now, of course, the university supports the dental school in numerous ways, but the money we receive from the Commonwealth is allocated for our students.
Are there discounts or scholarships available for state students in Temple Dental?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
I suspect the answer is that there are probably a number of restricted scholarships that we've raised over time that help underwrite a dental education.
The rural piece that's coming to Tamaqua is a great opportunity for students or dental students to save money because of the board would be, the boarding part of it, their place to stay would be covered as part of their tuition too.
Yes.
So that's great. Thank you very much. President Bendapudi, you spoke about, and first of all, let me congratulate you on the new chancellor at Schuylkill campus also. Schuylkill now is proud to show the Penn State and Temple brands, so we're very proud of that. But we now have Chancellor Bohr. Welcome to Schuylkill, so thanks for that. But you spoke in your opening comments about Invent Penn State, and it was previously funded at $2.3 million through DCED's budget, and it's no longer included in the budget proposal. Can you briefly explain what that program is and describe its impact on innovation and economic development to local communities?
I'm happy to. First of all, on rural health, sir, I want to make sure that I quickly share how much Penn State does in this place. The rurality is what we all are about, so we're doing a lot in that space with maternal fetal medicine, and as I shared with President Fry, I love this idea of the dental clinic, and happy to share what I've done there in other places as well. For us, with Invent Penn State, it is open to anybody in Pennsylvania. If you have an idea, you want to run a business, come on in. So we have committed to 24 of those launch boxes, the most recent of which was at Williamsport with some private philanthropy. So it's very important to us, and we hope it is funded. We've created so many jobs, and Secretary Saiga was recently at one called XHAB 3D right in State College, where if you haven't seen it, I strongly encourage you to check out their website of, in extreme habitats, how to concrete print a house, an entire abode, if you will. And so the work that we're doing is cutting edge, the jobs that are being created is impressive, and we humbly seek support. It helps all Pennsylvanians.
No, thank you very much, and our time is up, so thank you all very much.
Thank the gentleman, Representative Webster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here. I just always like to take a second and recognize the folks behind you. I had that job once in my life, and the work and the time they take to make sure you're prepared is enormous, so thank you all. Mr. Chairman, I found myself dozing off over here, so excuse me if I try to juice this up a little bit. My take on all of this is we can't live without higher education. It's why all of us are sitting here, is because of the skills and the education that prompted all the other opportunities. And Dr. Benapudi, you mentioned in your opening remarks our support for your organizations, for the institutions that make Pennsylvania, one of the best places in the world for all kinds of technologies or health science or other things, has been stagnant. And I want to hear the impacts of that, what we could be, what the vision should be for the young men and women in Pennsylvania, so that we invest in higher education rather than deny that impact, and that we move this entire Commonwealth into a better future. So if you want to start, that's great, but I would like to hear from each of you that what we could accomplish by providing more resources, by making in-state tuition cheaper, and by keeping all of those students in the Commonwealth.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it very much. We are grateful for what you do. We recognize you have tough choices to make, but I would argue higher education is one of the best investments you can make on behalf of this Commonwealth. For us, every dollar that you give us goes to support our students' in-state tuition. Even though we get only $5,000 plus, less than $6,000 per student, please know that the in-state tuition, we discount to the tune of $20,000 compared to out-of-state. So the remaining amount is coming from Penn State. We're taking the dollars and putting it in. Every dollar goes to support our students. And to me now, so literally last night my CFO and I were talking about it. Penn State invests over $400 million a year in trying to make sure that our in-state tuition continues to stay at the level it is. As I told you, we get less even in nominal dollars today. That means not accounted for inflation compared to 2000. We get less today than we did in 2000. We have 10,000 more students, and inflation, if we accounted for inflation. So what would we do? If you brought us to par, if you gave us the same amount per student as PASHE or Temple or Pitt, we would be at $140 million more. But we are all underfunded, is my point, compared to the national average. What would we do with it? We would reduce tuition more. We would be able to invest more in these programs where students can be embedded in the community, have richer experiences. We would be able to attract more industry. When you think about where are the jobs of the future, they are going to go to the talent pipeline. Yeah. So that's what we would do. That's my plea. Yeah. At every state I've been in 5 states, I think, and so this one, the investment. I will say one quick thing, sir. Pennsylvania has way too many colleges per student. So I looked at why is it that we have underfunded. That's a challenge. I don't know how we address it, but that's also reality. Right. Declining populations, demographic cliff is here. The 1-year-olds of today are 20% less than the 18-year-olds in college today. So it's a complex issue, but I hope that the state and we are all eager to partner with you.
I want to add something to that. As you know, Lincoln University is the first degree granting historically black college. There are 107 approximately HBCUs in this country. HBCUs, there, which is only about 3% of all higher education, yet HBCUs produce about 20% of all African Americans with a baccalaureate degree. 80% of all black judges in this country went to an HBCU. 50% of all physicians, 50% of all dentists attended an HBCU, and 25% of black people in STEM had part of their career at a historically black college. But historically, we have functioned with resources at only a fraction of many of our PWI counterparts. And so while I am very grateful for the investment that the Commonwealth makes in Lincoln University, I often ask myself, how much more could we do if we had more resources, especially since we are educating a large majority of students where they don't come with all of the preparation that they may need. However, we are somehow able to do for them what they need in order for them to rise to the level of excellence that we've seen. And so as long as historically black colleges in general continue to have to punch above their weight, we continue to have to work harder than some of our counterparts. And to some degree, we have to ask ourselves how much of the reservoir talent, especially among African Americans, we're missing because we don't have the resources to embrace them all.
Mr. Chairman, I know we're out of time. I just want to state for the record that we can do so much more to raise Pennsylvania and Pennsylvanians to a higher level of income and investment. We ought to be doing it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Representative Krupa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all so much for being here today. President Bendapudi, you're in the hot seat. So I can't help but feel that it's super hypocritical that you're here talking about Pennsylvania investing in Penn State when Penn State has turned its back on 7 Commonwealth campuses, including Penn State Fayette in my district. This action represents a serious departure from Penn State's land grant mission that built this institution. These campuses aren't just facilities on a map, they're lifelines for working class students, economic anchors for rural communities, and places where people who might never have had access to higher education were able to build a future. In Fayette County, both of the state representatives, myself, Representative Ryan Warner, and our state senator Stefano are all Penn State alum, and all have roots in Fayette campus. But at the same time, Penn State is closing campuses like Fayette. The university is asking taxpayers for more money than ever before. According to the materials we received, Penn State's requesting $394.4 million in state funding, an increase of more than $58 million, or about 11.7% over last year's appropriation. And yet, while asking taxpayers for more funding, the university has approved hundreds of millions in discretionary spending, including $7 million in a stadium renovation, tens of millions paid to a football coach to walk away from his job, and a 7-figure salary increase for you in the role of university president. So I think it's reasonable for taxpayers to ask, if there is money for all that, why is there suddenly no money to keep our rural campuses open? Beyond the financial decisions, what concerns me is also the lack of transparency and accountability surrounding these closures. I've proposed legislation that would require things like advance notice to the Commonwealth, economic and community impact reports and studies, a clear transition plan for students, a workforce plan for employees, and a public strategy for long-term use of the property. So I have several questions. The first being, last year, when Representative Ryan Warner and I met with you in State College, and I commend you, and I was very grateful to have, I think it was 45 minutes that you sat down with us and took the time to discuss Fayette campus. At that time, you specifically indicated that Penn State was taking into consideration regional workforce needs, and then you quickly acknowledged that there is a shortage of nursing staff across Pennsylvania. Has Penn State made a final decision with respect to the nursing program in Fayette campus? My understanding is that Penn State may keep a physical footprint in Fayette County with respect to the nursing program.
Thank you, Representative Krupa. It's always good to hear your perspective on things. I would like to set a couple of things straight before I get to what you said. Number one, on athletics.
With all due respect, we only have 5 minutes.
I understand, but I have to correct it because this comes up again and again. And maybe you heard me before. Not $1 of your appropriations, not $1 of a student tuition, and not $1. We don't even charge student fees, unlike many universities that are compelled to. It's completely self-sustaining.
With all due respect, that sounds like smoke and mirrors. It's a shuffle game. So, but we only have 5 minutes.
Okay.
Chairman Harris.
Okay, I appreciate it. I'm so sorry.
So
I disagree because I would like to be on the record that I completely disagree. But I will go on because it's all ticket sales and philanthropy, just to be. But on the campuses, please know that this was an agonizing decision for us. If the Commonwealth has funded the campuses at the same level as even Apache.
May I politely interrupt you? My first question was with respect to the nursing program in Fayette County.
Thank you. Yeah. On that, we are looking at every single campus. We have 3 people looking at it. Our government representative, Mike Steffen, as well as we have Renata Engel, our vice president for Commonwealth campuses, and a member of the board. That's how seriously we're taking it. Rob Fenza are looking at every single campus and trying to do our very best in working with the communities. And I know in Fayette, I will tell you that Renata Engel graduated from Fayette, understands it, that's her background. We are looking at it all, and it would be inappropriate for me to give an answer to any one program on a campus because the work is happening. We're doing our very best to work with communities to keep them successful.
Has Penn State submitted any formal notice, documentation, or request to the Pennsylvania Department of Education regarding the formal closure of these campuses, including Penn State Fayette?
We have not yet. We are not within the window when we need to. We fully intend to submit plans, including what will happen with each and every one of our students.
Has the university conducted any publicly shared economic impact studies or reports regarding the campuses in the local communities?
I know that each community has been doing it, and Penn State is definitely, we have some of those reports. I do not know. We can follow up with you later.
Mr. Chairman, in light of the back and forth, may I have 30 seconds more? I promise I won't ask about cannabis.
30 seconds.
Not in this hearing, not in this hearing.
30 seconds.
What commitments are being made to the faculty and staff who've built their careers at these branch campuses?
I'm glad you asked. We have made plans for all of the faculty and staff to have priority hiring. Many of them have already been accommodated. As you recall, we gave everybody 2 years, and on top of it, the priority hiring gives them the opportunity to transfer to jobs at other Commonwealth campuses, madam, or at University Park.
Thank you. We are out of time. Thank you.
Thank the gentlelady, Representative Kincaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've talked about labor, we've talked about campus closures. I'm going to talk about both. So in light of the Penn State campus closures, Penn State made a commitment to find comparable positions for the Teamsters Union members working as groundskeepers and other staff on these satellite campuses at campuses that are not closing. As of January, though, 45 of those Teamsters had not received such an offer. Has that been addressed, and how many Teamsters remain without an offer?
I don't have that figure off the top of my head. I do know that the conversations with Teamsters are progressing. My understanding is productively, including on a lot of the aspects, but I'm happy to follow up with you.
Okay, yes, I would appreciate that. Thank you. Teeth remain luxury bones in this Commonwealth, and especially in rural areas. We are hemorrhaging dentists, especially those who participate in Medicaid. Pitt and Temple are taking steps to address that need. Can you guys talk about your plans?
I'll start. We have something that is, so yes, we are both very committed to this. It is not only a very high need area, but there's actually a very deep body of research on how your oral health affects the rest of your physical health with direct ties to other community health issues that can be resolved with strong dental health care. So For us, our dean, Marnie Oakley, who's fabulous, is something that she learned when she was a military dentist around bringing dental care into underserved areas, both through dental training, which is the cornerstone of what we're doing, but also through dental hygienist training and a new program that's a master's in dentistry. For people like me who aren't experts in dental care, the way I understand it is it's sort of like being a PA or a nurse practitioner, but in dentistry. So this would be a new area of expertise where you bring in something between a dental hygienist, which for us is a 4-year degree, and the dentists who can do a lot of the procedures so that the dentists themselves can rotate in rural communities. So she's in the process of setting that up. We're not as far along as Temple is, but all of her plans are underway, and we think this will make a really big difference in underserved areas for oral care.
And what I would add, I think the interesting thing about Tamaqua is that is it a replicable model for dental care in rural areas? We believe it'll break even by the end of year 2. And so the question is, after going through this sort of initial work, can we take that model and perhaps consider other areas that are motivated like Tamaqua to partner with us? And I'm hopeful the answer is going to be yes. We don't want to overextend ourselves until we actually get into the work. But once we do it, and if we have something that's replicable, we're happy to talk to other communities about bringing it to them.
I think that's great. And my understanding is that the program at Pitt is also aspiring to be sort of self-sustaining in that way.
Yes, exactly. It should be neutral once it gets going. There's a lift to get it going, exactly as President Fry described. But it should be self-sustaining financially, but also it should be self-sustaining from a community engagement point of view, because the more in all areas, the more you educate people locally in their community, the more likely they are to stay in their community. And this, we expect to be a prime example of that.
Right, and just to underline that point, the leadership in Tamaqua they've been the heroes. They've driven this, they've had the vision. We're happy to partner with them, but they've been driving this. They've been raising money. They've gotten public and private funds together, and without them, this wouldn't have been possible.
Thank you. I appreciate the efforts on this really essential area. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Gentlelady. Representative Reichert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Bendaputi, I was reading this morning, you had a blog post on your Penn State. As an alum, I get those, and I do enjoy reading them. You mentioned in there about the state appropriation going to invest in PA resident students. I think you mentioned 41,000 PA undergrads, 19,000 are first in their family to attend college. 60% of Penn State's enrollment are Pennsylvania students. A lot of those students are found at our 7 Commonwealth campuses, which Mont Alto is in my district. And you mentioned that Penn State is a gateway to opportunity, but it looks like that gateway is being closed at these seven universities. How do we reconcile that as we're going through the appropriations process? How do we reconcile appropriating money to Penn State for this mission when it's being discontinued at 7 campuses?
I think I cannot deny how painful it is to the community and to the individuals there. There's nothing I can say that makes that go away because it's true. I acknowledge it. It's a very difficult decision to make. Sir, I will tell you that the lack of population in those areas makes it very expensive for a Penn State degree to be there. We are working very hard. I told you, we get less today, even in nominal dollars, not accounting for inflation compared to the year 2000. I will say the other things we are doing, let me tell you, we're strengthening the other communities. In Mont Alto, we're working with the communities on what the alternatives are. What it is allowing us to do this difficult decision is to make sure that instead of having programs or communities that are not strong, that we are able to invest more. Rural health, you're talking about, we have a program now, sir, called PC Medic that we've just rolled out. Primary care, emergency medicine, if you would think about that. In every rural county, how do we have someone that can help? And the very fact that still, we have this many students that we educate is why we believe we're being a good partner to the Commonwealth.
Well, so there's a couple things to unpack with that. First of all, Franklin County is actually growing in population. Your own study demonstrated that. Temple receives obviously less than Penn State, but they're expanding services and expanding programs. So again, a difficult thing to reconcile here. But just moving forward a little bit, again, we don't want to relitigate what's going on, even though we obviously have some differences on that. What do you think is Penn State's obligation to these campuses and these communities that are affected going forward?
Great question. Once again, I would remind you that Penn State still gets half as much as Temple and Pitt per student. So these are the problems that have accumulated over decades. For us with the campuses, this is the commitment we have made. We have these 3 individuals meeting with you. I know they've met with the representatives in each area, meeting with the communities, trying to bring in private and public partners because we want these communities to be strong. We are truly committed to it, and it's a tough decision that had to be made because of all of the data that I gave you.
So when June 27, 2027 rolls around, in July, we're not going to have campuses overgrown with weeds. I mean, these aren't going to just be abandoned facilities. I mean, there is going to be a perpetual Penn State presence and involvement until there is a warm turnover for each individual institution.
We are working so hard, and in the next few months, hopefully you will see what they are.
Well, I think at least with Mont Alto, we're very fortunate with our plan and everything we have there. But can you commit to us that there will be maintenance, that there will be some sort of continual Penn State involvement at each of these campuses until there is a warm transition for every single one of them?
Yes.
Thank you. So just in closing, again, you mentioned the partnership with the Commonwealth here. If the university presence, if I could just get a quick show of hands of who has General Assembly representation on their Board of Trustees, if you have. So I just wanted to bring that up real quick there, President Bendaputi. I mean, the General Assembly doesn't have that same representation on Penn State's Board of Trustees. It's a different relationship, and again, I applaud Temple and the other universities for expansion. I look forward to continuing to work with you, for these transitions here, because again, I know we have some exciting things at Mont Alto. It's been a difficult process, a shock to a lot of us. But, I think we have some opportunity here, and I, again, look forward to Penn State's continued involvement. So, thank you.
Thank the gentleman. Representative Mullins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see you again. Chancellor Gable, it was great to spend some time out at the University of Pittsburgh just before Christmas time, where with Governor Shapiro, we announced the first ever state funding for the research of neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, ALS, and Parkinson's. And my friend and colleague, Brian Cutler, is here, who was instrumental in that historic effort as well. And it's a matter that's deeply personal to him and to me and to so many Pennsylvanians. So I wanted to, I guess, give you an update, all of you, with those of you with research operations, that the Department of Health will soon be rolling out this program to deploy that $5 million, and time flies when you're having fun. And we're looking at next year's budget, where I'm very proud that the governor has yet again included it in his proposal, a $5 million line item in the Department of Health. So, just wanted to hear from you and any other presidents regarding how critical this funding is, especially in light of flatlined and uncertain federal funding. It would be just great to hear perspective.
Sure, I'll start, Representative, and thank you for supporting the legislation, and also for the way we were able to co-participate in the announcement and rollout of that legislation. So I think when you see bipartisan support for working collaboratively with your really committed research institutions to solve one of the biggest healthcare questions that we have, this particular group of diseases, there's no one who's not touched by someone with Alzheimer's in their family. Those of us who have someone that we love or care about who's had ALS know that this is just an absolutely devastating diagnosis. Parkinson's, I mean, these are pervasive, systemic, societal challenges that have fundamental impact on obviously the people diagnosed, but of course also their families and the healthcare system that seeks to take care of them. And some of the most compelling, brilliant clinicians and scientists in the world working on them who really care and want to see these problems solved. And so when we are able to provide funding for them, obviously that makes them more able to do the work. But when we provide that funding in the way you did, that shows support for what they're doing. When we were talking earlier, we said a lot of these people are in a dark lab with their face in a microscope all day long, just trying to, at the cellular level, solve something that causes so much pain and destruction. And then, you know, they pick their head up and hear from all of you that this matters, that it's really important, and that we want to work together to try and solve it. The after effect of that, in addition to the competitive grant process that you all have created and funded, is now we're hearing from foundations, we're hearing from philanthropic partners, people like Rory Cooper, who you all know, who does work on assistive technologies, significant grant from the Department of Defense that relates directly to these physical accommodations that you need in light of the physical impacts of these diseases. It's what research universities working in partnership with the legislature are able to do. So we're very grateful, and we're able to feel optimism amidst something that is often a difficult space to find that optimism.
Can I just add that with the state investing in that research on these large research campuses helps to replace some of the funding that went away from the federal government that allowed researchers at Temple, Pitt, and Penn to take students from a place like Lincoln University and provide them that direct instruction and undergraduate research opportunity. And so I think it replaces a very critical experience, not just on those campuses for those researchers, but what a grant like that can do to bring students from other campuses to be a part of that really very important research.
And please understand, too, that these kind of investments by the Commonwealth also drive significant philanthropy. We just received the largest gift in Temple's history for public health, and many aspects of that gift are going to be able to support what you're doing right now. Those votes of confidence in institutions like ours are crucial to philanthropists who want to see who else has skin in the game.
I appreciate that. I remember when Dad was diagnosed with ALS and was declining, I knew that there were just world-class researchers around the world trying to save his and other lives. And to get a chance to help in their mission and to meet them personally and see them in their closet-sized laboratories was a real full circle special moment. So thank you all.
We thank the gentleman. Representative Brown.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you all for being here today. I would like to begin by talking about Penn State's tuition and as it relates to the other public universities in the Big Ten Conference. Penn State has the highest tuition of those 16 universities at $20,468 for a first-year resident on main campus. Ohio State's closest to the median, where the same student would be charged $13,641, a difference of $6,827. Ohio State does receive more state funding per student than Penn State, or $10,931 for Ohio versus $5,796 for Penn State. That's a difference of $5,135. So as you can see, the difference in tuition is larger than the difference in state funding per student. So I would like to specifically understand what accounts for that higher tuition, significantly higher tuition.
Happy to follow up with you with more details as well. Penn State, the difference has been over decades And so you can imagine what would happen. Today, if we just kept up with inflation, we would receive over 200 million more than we used to with 10,000 fewer students, as you know. So part of it is the deferred maintenance questions that you asked, other ways that we would invest in this big footprint has had an impact, madam. The other thing that I would say is that Penn State is in all 67 counties, and that is not typical even for an Ohio State. So a lot of things that we do, we are also extraordinarily mindful of controlling tuition. While it is high and it worries me, we put so much into in-state need. And adjusting for inflation, students today are paying $1,000 less than they used to, even 10 years ago. That doesn't mean we're done. Please know that in all the years I've been here, some of these questions it's hard for me to answer because I've only been here coming up on 4 years. So I don't know the history of many of these. But I will tell you that on our Commonwealth campuses, we have not increased tuition at all, zero, for this time period. And even at University Park, we're trying to keep it sub-inflation. The challenge we have is the open access mission that we have. I will tell you this. Ohio State has 4 campuses, Commonwealth campuses, if you will, like our idea of beyond the main campus, and they're talking about 4 is too many. What can we do? That's the reality. Penn State's, it's a complicated thing, but I would love to send you more details so you can look for yourself. How are the profiles different? What is the philanthropy? What is the endowment? Why did it get there? So one more aspect I would tell you in terms of what we do to keep tuition low. I do not know, it's historic. Both Ohio State and other universities in the Big Ten, their capital campaigns to build up the endowment war chest, if you will, from which we give scholarships, from which we can control, are about 100 years older. They started before we did. So it's a complicated issue. It's something I wrestle with. I'm deeply committed to try to keep tuition low. It's truly the access mission and the world class, that we are trying to maintain. We would love your support in doing that.
Well, we owe that detail to our constituents because, the plan is to keep tuitions low for students, and that's not happening in your situation.
And
so we will look forward to that detail.
May I say one thing about that? Every dollar you give us goes to in-state tuition, discount that we provide. That's how it should be. On top of what you give, Penn State puts in over, $15,000 to try to keep, discount to try to keep in-state tuition low. We'll continue to work on it.
Well, there should be significant savings with all the campus closes, so that should also impact it moving forward, I would think. But we do need to switch gears real quickly. In February, the State Board of Higher Education approved the first strategic plan for higher education in the Commonwealth, which, shockingly, this just happened. Were your universities consulted on its creation? And if you know enough about it, either one or two of you, how do you see the mission of your colleges fitting into this plan?
One of my colleagues, our deputy provost, Mary Louise Eston, was involved directly in the effort. By the way, also in the spirit of the formula funding or the incentive-based funding as well. And we really do appreciate being involved in that. And I think when I looked at it and provided my comments, basically it made clear to me that Temple has other roles to play, within the larger context of the Commonwealth. And we intend to move into those spaces, some of which we've talked about today, and play that role. So it was extremely helpful, even though it's at a high level, to help us as leaders identify, well, where should we be playing a larger role?
That's good to hear.
Can I just add, I'm vice chair of the State Board of Higher Education, and I just want to say I think that it is a strategic plan that is broad enough for every type of institution in Pennsylvania to find a place to be able to contribute to the overall goal of really fueling the economic engine for Pennsylvania. And I think it's just going to be a great opportunity for the state and for the businesses in the state.
Good, I appreciate that. Thank you all.
Thanks, gentlelady. Representative Bellman.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all for being here. I have a few questions, so I know I want to try to get to them all. But it's going to be a little bit about workforce development. So I wanted to see, how are you aligning your academic programs with Pennsylvania's workforce shortages, specifically in fields like nursing, teaching, and technology? I know we touched on it a little bit before, but I wanted to see if you guys had an answer for us on that.
So in 2025, we launched a Center for Excellence in Workforce Development at our School for Adult and Continuing Education in our Philadelphia facility. So far in that facility, we started to train medical technicians. We're in our third cohort. All get through the program, they take their certification, and we help them through job placement. We are engaged in a cybersecurity certification process as well. And we continue to look at those zip codes. One of the things about the workforce development question earlier that I wanted to add is that not only do we need to look at what we currently do on our campuses, so as a liberal arts institution, our way of really providing experience for the workforce is bringing the employees from the state, employers from the state into the campus to help our students understand how they can turn that liberal arts education into a career in those different industries. What we're trying to do in our Philadelphia facility is really provide the first pathway into higher education through these micro-credentials and certification opportunities that start to give you entry-level skills for the job force, but hopefully may wake people up to the idea of moving on to an associate's, to a bachelor's, and so on. So there are many ways I think our institutions across the board can really contribute to workforce development, and we have to start to think a little bit more outside the box in terms of how we do that and how we deliver that for different populations.
I'll go next. We look very closely at labor statistics, and it's part of our strategic plan to be sort of continually reevaluating through academic program review. Across our campuses, we have a few very specific things. Our Titusville campus is a workforce and training center specifically for our programs, but also for partners in the community that it serves to come in and do continuing education, upskilling, and licensing. We have the Pitt Edge suite of online programs that are looking at high workforce needs, starting in health sciences, where we have a really strong anchor, but expanding out from there. We have a rural recruiting program that's looking in the same direction. Pitt Bradford just launched a four-year degree in emergency medicine for EMT, bachelor's trained EMT. The dental school is doing its work in dental hygienist, all of which are intended to do workforce development, but particularly in areas where the skill sets are not as well served or where there are shortages. And then we rinse and repeat. You know, you all develop your data, and then we align it to our data, and then we sit and reevaluate accordingly.
So in addition to those data-driven approaches, you know, being involved in sort of civic leadership in Philadelphia, one of the most exciting things is the growth of the Navy Yard, particularly with Hanwha and shipbuilding. And so we're spending a lot of time down there with Hanwha, with Rhodes Industries, with other businesses, talking to them about their talent needs. And we're now working on a proposal to provide support. They're talking about in excess of 10,000 jobs over a period of time. Funding seems to be in place. There's corporate commitment. There's huge federal and state support for this as well. So one of the things I think we need to do as institutions is, in our context, sort of move into those gaps and say, look, you know, we're the public research universities. What can we do to help you meet your workforce needs? And so we're active in that particular area, and that is going to be a very large order.
Thank you. And Dr. Fry, I had it was a principal that was right outside of my district that I met with from New York, but came to Philadelphia through Temple University, stayed in Philadelphia, taught Philadelphia's young people, and is now a principal. So I also want to ask the question too, is there anything else that the General Assembly can do to make sure that those people who come here and are educated here through higher education actually stay here in Pennsylvania and become lifelong Pennsylvanians?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's that's critical because, we've been exporting more than we've been importing. And, we have a great community across the entire Commonwealth represented by the 4 institutions here today. And anything we can do through incentive programs to bring people here, keep them here, tether them to these kind of institutions, and provide meaningful incentives is critical. And I think for us in particular, the big issue in Philadelphia right now is economic mobility. So how do we work with our communities at the grassroots level to understand through the various workforce development programs that we have that we give people their opportunity for the first meaningful job, with a family sustaining wage. And there are all sorts of things that we have as tools, some of which the Commonwealth and the city provide us, where universities can do that. That is a major, major part of our agenda. And when you think about the need, especially to revitalize cities like Philadelphia, that's the way you're going to do it. It's not just about public safety. It's about giving people an opportunity to work.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it.
Thank the gentleman, Representative DeVanzo.
Thank you, Chairman Harrison, and thank you all for being here today. My question goes out to the University of Pittsburgh. Chancellor Gable, last year I asked a question concerning, it was then Vice President Harris had a political rally at the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse. Now it's a Peterson Event Center. I asked questions like who paid for it? Was it a discounted rate? Who paid for security? And I believe we left it. You were going to get me some of the answers. If you sent them over, we never got them. So if it's something we could follow up with at the end of this, I would appreciate it. Or if you have the answers now, we could discuss it, but I'm sure you don't.
Apologies that you didn't get that. We will absolutely get that to you.
All right, thank you. And I appreciate that. So my question is just for all 4 of you guys, ladies as well, as we move into the data center era, what technologies, what initiatives, what private partnerships are we working with to ensure that, one, Pennsylvania workforce, folks are coming from Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania energy, we're rich on natural gas, our resources are coming here. How can a data center being built in Pennsylvania get the most out of our Pennsylvania resources, and how can our 4 universities here today benefit the most out of it as well?
I'll start. Fun fact, the oldest petroleum engineering program in the country was at the University of Pittsburgh, founded in 1910. And as a pretty obvious reflection of the natural resources, we have a new dean in engineering, and she's revitalizing that program with some really key faculty. And then recently, we had a big energy summit that I'm sure President Bendapudi will speak to as well, looking at the role of data centers and data in general and its connection to energy, and how the region can both serve and benefit from the growth that's possible here, jobs, community investment, and all of the domino effect of that. I spoke recently with the Marcellus Shale Association about this very issue, about the revitalization of our academic program, the energy needs associated, and how we needed to be working together on that. And then we have faculty doing research in those areas in partnership with our industry partners. This is very much who we are. It's part of those strategic risk investments that are referred to in the strategic plan. We have a whole focus on powering the future and what that means for student programs, the communities, the job workforce opportunities, and also the underlying infrastructure necessary for AI to cause the positive outcomes and make our lives better that we were talking about earlier.
It's a great question. Thank you for that. Chancellor Gable alluded to it. I had the pleasure, as the representative of what could rightly be called the Energy University, that's really what we do, such a large part of it, had the pleasure of being the moderator on a panel that Senator McCormick, Governor Shapiro, and Matt Gorman, the CEO of AWS, who started the whole data warehouses in Pennsylvania, if you would. And we talked about this in quite some depth because of Penn State's position as the leader in producing STEM graduates. The interesting thing is what's happening on the research side. So we're all producing the workers of today and tomorrow. On research, I'm very enthused about what is happening. I can speak to my university. We are looking at new ways of not just materials, that's our strength. So a 2D computer chip instead of 3D. And what does that mean? That work is happening. And in today's Penn State Today, we were showcasing how this etching on the silicon chip for the data warehouses, what we can do. How do we do it in a way that's more sustainable? So playing a very big part, and we are in active conversations with all of the players in this area who look to us to help them as we develop.
Yeah, perfect. Anything else to add before I wrap up? Or
I would love to be able to see what opportunities we could bring, particularly to North Philadelphia in this regard. We have so much vacant land, underutilized, buildings which were, once an instrumental part of the industrial part of Philadelphia that are vacant. And so anything that would be a good set of opportunities that we can look at as alternatives in North Philadelphia, I think would be great.
yeah, absolutely. And once again, thank you guys for everything today, for coming out here. For someone that's pro-Pennsylvania, as our caucus, is there anything we can do to help out to make sure that we're using Pennsylvania resources, Pennsylvania jobs, Pennsylvania economy across the board? Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. Representative Waxman.
Hi, good morning, and thank you all so much for being here. I just want to kind of highlight the wide range of benefits and investments that we see as a result of having a thriving higher education sector, and in particular the state-related universities. And I wanted to start with Temple University. I represent Center City, Philadelphia, including the Avenue of the Arts. And I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit about the investment that you're making in Center City. And I know you're a real estate guy, so maybe some tangible sort of benefits that are just seen from basic investments that are made in real estate by our great universities.
I'm not a PhD and I'm not a real estate guy either, but I would, well, we all understand what happened to the University of the Arts. It was a terrible tragedy, with students and employees being displaced. Temple was able to take close to 380 of those students, give them a new home, and many have graduated, and we wanted to help with that disruption. But the other major disruption with the demise of UArts was the fact that their 9-building campus in the middle of the Avenue of the Arts in the center of Philadelphia, basically went away. We purchased the largest asset. It's a 280,000 square foot building called Terra Hall. It's a significant building, and we're investing $35 million, mostly in infrastructure, foundations and elevators and things like that, to completely repurpose that building for educational and academic uses. And so we have some space in Center City. We're moving all of that, consolidating that in Terra Hall, making the $35 million investment. And then in addition to that, as a great space for Temple Center City to hold classes and do our work, we're also inviting many of the cultural not-for-profits up and down Avenue of the Arts, such as the orchestra, the library company, PAFA. There'll be others as well, to take advantage of the fact that we have a campus at Broad and Walnut, and we want to make that an open campus and give them an opportunity to share that space with us. And so much work that we all do together, for example, around providing support for Philadelphia school children. We now have better classrooms and places for those kids to assemble. So we're sort of moving into the void that was left by UArts, making a significant investment, and becoming the educational anchor in Center City. And as Philadelphia's public university, that's exactly what we should be doing.
And we're so grateful, and what happened to the University of the Arts was really a terrible tragedy, and to see this sort of tangible investment that obviously is going to benefit Temple students, faculty, staff, but it also is doing very tangible good for Center City, for the commercial corridor along Broad Street. And I just am so grateful that we have these examples of these very tangible investments that our universities make and how they impact our communities. But one of the wonderful things about academia and our university system is we are not just investing in real estate and opening new classrooms, and those things are important, but we're also in the pursuit of knowledge, and we're in the pursuit of sort of wonder. And I think I want to ask the folks from Penn State, Dr. Bendabudi, specifically at Penn State, there is the Extraterrestrial Intelligence Center, which is exactly what it sounds like. A bunch of astronomers and astrophysicists who are pointing telescopes towards the sky. and trying to answer some of the oldest questions that we as humans have struggled with from the beginning. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the importance of investing not only in the sort of tangible, but also in knowledge and wonder and what that can lead to when we make those investments.
I am so grateful to receive that question. I just cannot even tell you. It's so important. You are correct. We are one of the most impactful research universities in the world, not just in the country. And so it is important we always make room for questions that address the problems of today, but also leave room for questions of curiosity, questions of discovery. And that's a big strength of having research universities. At our last AAU, which is 71 of the leading research universities in the world, we all wrestled with this, sir. While we look at the workforce of today and the problems of today, continuing to invest in what makes this US economy and Pennsylvania as great as it is those investments that need to be made. So the recent discoveries we've made with Black Cat, so look that up, we don't have time, to see what is happening. How did the first stars emerge? You never know where this will take, because whether it's your phone or it's your computer, all of these started with questions of discovery, and then someone decides or finds how to apply it. So we're always striking that fine balance between addressing the needs of today and trying to anticipate the questions of tomorrow. I like your way better. We call them questions of curiosity, questions of awe and wonder.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank the gentleman. Representative Kale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Presidents, for being here today. I have a couple of questions on safety on campus, and particularly the first line of questioning as it relates to world events. After the horrific events of October 7th a couple of years ago, there was a rise of anti-Semitism across the nation, on college campuses and elsewhere. And each of you had to deal with that and work through that situation. I'm curious, with the current events that are happening now, with what's going on in the Middle East, have we seen a reaction on college campuses? And how are we making sure that our Jewish students are being kept safe and secure, and we're also keeping open dialogue among students and staff?
I'll go first. I know we're all, as you aptly state, Representative, addressing the complexity of global affairs. But I'll start, of course, by fundamentally condemning anti-Semitism and saying that it has no place at the University of Pittsburgh, and that we have been working very closely both with our Jewish students and Jewish community leadership, which is robust and heavily partnered in Pittsburgh, having had a very long history, and also very significant tragedies over the course of that history. If there's any silver lining to be found amidst tragedies, it often brings people together, and that has resulted in a very strong community approach to anti-Semitism specifically. And on campus, the recent launch of an anti-Semitism task force that has faculty, staff, students, and community members working specifically on the uptick in anti-Semitism. Broadly, we have not seen a fundamental level change in the amount of student voice being expressed across issues. We have a very purple campus, and so we have very purple voice at the University of Pittsburgh amongst our students. The issues that they're taking up are varying and evolving with the times. In actually multiple directions, we're ensuring we bring in a balanced slate of speakers and experts in order to facilitate, and actually they do a lot of that on their own through who they invite and how they set up their own conversations. So I would say that as a matter of, if you were to look statistically at the level of activity or activism or activation on campus, it would look flat. The issues that they're addressing are varying according with the times. That's what we're seeing.
One of the things I did when I arrived at Temple, we had an anti-Semitism task force back in 2022. I asked the group to sort of come back together and update the work that they did, and that was very instructive. And I started to meet then with various groups such as the ADL, the Jewish Federation, to sort of get their input and their advice about what we could be doing better to strengthen our policies and practices, to share the things that they've seen on other campuses and what we can do to sort of strengthen our practices. That's been incredibly helpful, and we've been taking that advice and putting it into practice. We haven't seen much recently, but that, of course, could change in an hour, and so we have to be ever ready. But again, we're very, very focused on working with Hillel and Chabad on our campus and making sure that our students feel safe and heard, and that's an ongoing effort on my part.
I think that's well said by my colleagues. I'm very proud that thanks to the hard work of a dedicated team of professionals, even post-October 7th, as you said, with the atrocities that were committed, Penn State navigated it reasonably well with our faculty, staff, and students. And we condemn anti-Semitism wholeheartedly. And one of the second parts of your question was, what are we doing to get students to talk to each other more? And how do we realize that there may be some aspects on which we disagree, but there are other aspects on which we do agree? So I'm very proud of a series that we've begun, Open for Debate, where it's not just two talking heads talking to each other. That's usually how we define free speech and different points of view. They talk, they stop, and in the room, faculty, staff, students, and community members are wrestling with this. I want Penn State to become the 21st century public square, so people can debate, people can exchange ideas, and fundamentally still realize that we're all human.
So I don't have a population of Jewish students on my campus, but I think it's important that all people come to understand how to engage in discussion around issues that are important. I also think it's very important that we challenge our students to understand the humanity in others, which then sort of frames the way in which they engage these questions. And so as so much is going on in the world, one thing that we try to do is to make sure that the conversations we have are done in such a way that we understand how to do them in a respectful and civil manner. Whether or not individuals from any side of that are present in a conversation or not, but basically it's just how you engage important topics overall.
Thank you, and I would just appreciate with what's going on around the world if we just keep a close eye on it in particular now. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, gentleman. Representative Mays.
Thank you, Chair. Happy Women's History Month. My question is about how are you respectively preparing your students to enter the workforce to address the maternal health and the rural health crisis? We know Lincoln has a rich history of producing our doctors and other healthcare workers. Penn State has a large and extensive footprint throughout the state with your healthcare system. We know that Temple recently opened its Women and Families Hospital, and of course, hail to Pitt. As an alum of the University of Pittsburgh, we know that Pitt has the largest labor and delivery hospital in Western Pennsylvania. So we are facing a crisis that requires us to have pipelines for healthcare providers and workers. So I would love to hear from each of you what role you think your institution has to play in again, fighting the public health crisis of both Black maternal health and maternal health, as well as the critical needs in our rural communities across the Commonwealth.
So at Lincoln, we continue to prepare students for the next level, so be that medical school or nursing school or any of the other allied health. Towards that, we have quite a few students who are interested in health science overall. And I don't think you can be at a historically Black college and have a health sciences major and not really look at health disparities more generally. And so embedding conversations and opportunities for our students to especially discuss maternal child health and the health disparities that exist in this country in ways where Black women sometimes are, Black women who have babies are sometimes at greater risk of mortality than women in third world countries, and trying to understand the history of just the healthcare system, racism in this nation, and so on, that leads to those kinds of disparities in the end will be very important knowledge that they will take with them to medical school or to nursing school or wherever they choose to go beyond Lincoln University. So it's a very important underlying topic, I think, for everything we do in preparing our students for careers in the health sciences.
One of the things we are doing is called tailgate medicine. The idea of, in some of these rural communities, how do we build trust? So one of the big things that we're talking about, including rural health, and certainly, as you said, disparities in health equity that exist, is to build trust. So now when they go into the communities, it's not just the medical students and nursing students that are there. We have people from agriculture talking about good food. We have rural sociology students that are working alongside them because, yes, they may recognize the Penn State football logo or Penn State athletics logo. If they trust it, how do we bring them into the family and guide them? Other things we are doing is really trying to prepare more primary care physicians, period, which is a big need. Real investments in telehealth to try to get them. And the PC Medic that I talked about is first in the country. We hope it's successful. And if it's a successful model, we can deploy it elsewhere. I mean, throughout other parts of the country as well. How can we have in each community? Typically, these are veterans because they already have some training to be there. So for maternal fetal medicine, for other emergencies that happen, we are really paying attention to it. We're very proud our Golisano Children's Hospital now just received $50 million in philanthropy that connects us to other children's hospitals across the country. But these are all efforts that we take seriously. But at Penn State Health, our Dean of Medicine and the CEO of Penn State Health are partnering in a big way to address this problem.
Just very quickly, I think you know, Representative, we have Pitt Center for Excellence in Maternal and Child Health that is focused exactly on this disparity and both the medical challenges associated and the resulting social challenges. So it is very anchored in clinical training, first and foremost, and getting that clinical care into the field, so to speak, but also in providing graduate students, postdocs, doctors in residency, nurses, and early career faculty with the support so that they can go into the field and look at what President Bendapudi describes as sort of the one health question of the clinical care plus food care plus wraparound for after school and weekend, summer, bridging, et cetera, so that families have what they need to support mom and child in the early days.
And you mentioned our new hospital for women and families that opened last June of 25, and I think that was a result of trying to take care of all of these individuals in a big acute care hospital. We just didn't have the specialty services for women. St. Christopher's Hospital for Children is badly under-resourced. We support them, but we also needed to do more for children. And so this new facility is terrific. We really invested very, very heavily in it at a time when it's hard to invest heavily in anything. And I'm really, really pleased with the result. I hope you'll come and visit and see it. It's a real miracle, and it's doing exactly what we hoped it would do.
Thank you all so much. The Pennsylvania Black Maternal Health Caucus will be relying on you and leaning on your leadership as we work to end the public health crisis of maternal health in our Commonwealth. Thank you, Chair.
Thank the gentlelady. Chairman Schweier.
Thank you, Chairman Harris. Good afternoon, everyone. And on behalf of the entire House Education Committee, I'd like to thank you all for your incredible work that you do for Pennsylvania residents, for students, again, whether they were from Pennsylvania originally or not, and all that you do to support our communities. I think all of us recognize that and want to remain a partner with you as you continue to serve our communities and our students. Changing subjects just a little bit. Over the course of the last 2 years, the General Assembly had created and funded a new scholarship program through FIA, the Pennsylvania GROW program, the PA GROW program. I'd like to explore conversations on how, from your perspective, is it helping our students? I believe it's a up to a $5,000 grant for students in key academic programs and in key areas of need. I'm wondering if you could let us know what your experience has been with that program and if it's working as intended.
We think it's an excellent program and applaud all of you for making that happen. There are glitches that we are working through, especially on the codes, the SIP codes as we call them. One aspect has been us as universities. I know this cuts across all of us, making sure that in the pre-major level, once the students get to the major, there's not a problem because that's clearly identified what they're studying. But when a student is admitted, saying, we just talked about healthcare, saying they're interested in nursing as an example, when they're admitted, we need to make sure that those pre-major codes are accepted by FIA. That's a challenge. So we are happy to do what we need to do, but we are looking forward to making sure that FIA also shows flexibility and has a way to acknowledge the codes as they are. I gave an example earlier of in engineering, 14.0000, it's 6 digits. Engineering general, no problem, FIA will accept it. But in agriculture, which is 1.0000, it won't. So those are the kinds of things we need to work through, but it's a great program.
Great, thank you.
We think it's an outstanding program. I don't think Temple is utilizing it to its full capacity, and that's something that we need to do.
So that's more of an internal issue for you
Yes.
in terms of your finance department working with students?
I don't exactly, and I don't think our students really know what the possibilities are, so we need to do a much better job of marketing this, putting this out with all the other things that we do to make sure people take advantage of it. So that's on us.
Dr. Allen?
Yeah, I think for us it's finding where we fit in the SIP codes because they are very professional oriented, and as a liberal arts institution, it's sometimes hard, even though our graduates go into many of those areas, how you define that major in that SIP code, we haven't quite figured out yet. So I think that's our issue, not yours.
No, but I think President Allen is right. For liberal arts, it's so broad. Students, as you know, are admitted into the liberal arts and sciences, even though the majors are approved. So if you can get that worked out, it'll help a lot of students. Because eventually the majors are in there, but for the liberal arts in particular, we face the same issue.
Sure, thank you.
I would second everything my colleagues have said on both sides. I think it's a fantastic program. I think it's exactly how you put your money where your mouth is, so to speak, in terms of all the things we've talked about in attracting new talent, putting them in high demand areas, setting them up for professional success, creating the right incentives. I think operationally, as with any program, there's some smoothing to do, and you've heard some compelling examples of that. And then all of us together can do, I think, a lot in partnership to make sure students know that the opportunity is there.
Fantastic. Yeah, I serve on the FIA board, and we've heard those conversations about the codes, and it's something that we are actively working on. I know the members from the General Assembly, at least the House, that are on that have had ample conversations, and if there's statutory changes, we're committed to do so. I don't think we need to. I just frankly think it's more of a regulatory issue inside FIA and just mirroring those up. Now, one of the concerns that we have is that, and this happened at a public hearing, there was an effort by some of our friends in the Senate, frankly, to claw back a significant amount of those dollars that's already been appropriated. In real life terms, when we're talking about students that are paying bills, this isn't a gotcha question. What would happen if somebody had been approved for money, but then it goes away? How would you respond to a student who thought that they were getting a grant and then poof, it goes away?
Well, we unfortunately have some experience with that from a couple of years ago when we had significant delays with the changes in the FAFSA form for all of federal financial aid. So I'm afraid we all know exactly what we would do.
Go to the student and say, take out a credit card and pay it off or whatever?
Well, we covered all of our students, but then because we were quite sure it was temporary. But in terms of communicating with students and looking for alternative resources, we never leave our students hanging. I think the question is more the long-term consequences of making sure that if we want students to be incentivized to both earn this education and then stay, and we want very much to be a part of the new talent pipeline across the Commonwealth, that programs like this are one of the main ways we make that happen.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you all so very much for your conversation today.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Struzzi.
Thank you, Chairman Harris. So it's been a long morning, I know. And I want you all, before I get into what I want to talk about here a little bit, I think we all appreciate the importance of higher education. I think we've heard a lot today about the demographic challenges and perhaps the need to right-size higher education, which I think we've been talking about in the General Assembly for some time. various plans have been put forth, and I'm interested to see how this strategic plan works out. But I also think there is a perception challenge with higher education. You know, the governor proposes flatline funding for all of you. You all want increases. And so I want to ask specifically to each of you, have your enrollments increased or decreased in recent years?
We're up across the system. The Commonwealth campuses for us are flat over the last couple of years, below historical peaks, but stable. The Oakland campus is growing.
Okay. We're down significantly in terms of total domestic enrollment the last 2 years, and hopefully this coming September will be up significantly, but there is a long road back to where we need to get to.
We are down slightly because I think part of it was the confusion over the Commonwealth campuses and what would happen, but overall we're very stable. And we do take into account what will happen over the next 20 years, as I've shared.
We're down and have gone through a process of right sizing, so what we would consider up will be greatly different than what we considered up prior to 2020.
Okay. So I think it's important that the people who are listening understand what your funding requests are. Given what you just said about enrollments, Penn State is asking for $394 million, an 11.7% increase. Temple is requesting $183 million, or a 16% increase. University of Pittsburgh is asking for $161.2 million, or a 3.7% increase, and Lincoln requested $24 million, or a 10% increase. I put that out there not to pass any type of judgment, just to say the numbers don't really mesh up. Now, I know this is the beginning part of the process of our budget negotiations, and you know, as in most years, what we talk about in these hearings and what the governor has proposed doesn't look remotely like what we see at the end of June and July, hopefully this year. But I think it's important for people to understand. The governor, flatline funding, $614 million. If all of your requests were to be met, that's $763 million, a pretty significant gap there. So I think you can see why people were sometimes hesitant when it comes to higher education and understanding why funds are needed. And I want to speak specifically, though, to Penn State. In this hearing last year, and this is where I get to the perception and the transparency. We asked, I believe specifically, if you knew what campuses were going to close, and you said no. And then it was 3 or 4 days later, the campuses that were going to close were announced. I was personally somewhat offended because literally you were in front of us and said you didn't know. Now I know that Mike and Aaron have come and sat with us and kind of explained the timing with your board and what happened there. But again, from our standpoint, it's a lack of transparency that we're concerned about. And so that I point that out because I think it's important that as we move forward and we talk about these extensive taxpayer dollars that are going to higher education, that we are transparent and that we are forthright. Understanding, again, difficult decisions have to be made. But when we ask you specifically and you say you don't know and then an announcement is made publicly, that's something that I think is hard for us to understand. But
may I address that, yes. Chairman Struzzi? Thank you very much for asking the question. It gives me an opportunity to explain what happened. Yes, you're correct. We had a hearing on February 20, and the specific question was, are you considering campuses closing? I went back and listened to it myself, just to be clear, and I told you all options are on the table. So I just looked at it. I said, all options are on the table. Then the challenge for me was, our board meeting was the 20th and 21st. And until the board met, I could not get ahead of them because everything has to be approved by them. At that time, the board agreed that 12 campuses would be under review. So I could not get in front of them. And once they started on the 25th, I believe, of February was when they said what the 12 would be that we would actually be reviewing. So that was the dilemma of the timing. Because truly, I cannot say what is going to happen until all of my bosses vote on it, sir.
I appreciate that, but I think you can understand why my colleagues and I have been very, I think, hard on you this hearing. and understanding, again, the demographic challenges. And I just think it's important that you know, whatever the future of higher education looks like, that we are transparent about what's happening, where we need to, again, right size, looking at curriculum, the workforce, as we discussed at length today. I think all these things need to be in front of the eyes of the public when we're talking about significant taxpayer dollars potentially going for higher education. So, again, thank you all for being here. We appreciate your testimony.
Thank you, sir. And hopefully you could all call this in-state tuition, because every university does that, because every dollar goes to reduce our in-state tuition, and that's a challenge for us. We still are about half of the national average at Penn State.
Thank the chairman. Real quick, I will have a question for Temple. You talked a little bit about this with Representative Waxman. I was very troubled when University of the Arts closed, and personally reached out to the board chair at Temple to see what it was that Temple could do to help. I know for a while many folks wanted to see Temple have a presence on South Broad Street, and you've sensed in that. I've taken a tour with some of your folks of facility that you're looking at, that you now own on South. Can you just talk a little bit more about, I think it's going to be the music programs are going to be some located there. Talk a little bit more about that. And is there other things that you could see happening on South Broad Street with Temple University?
Sure. Thank you, Chairman. So it's going to be a combination of professional programs that we already run in rented space in Center City, business, law, things of that nature. And then, because it is on the Avenue of the Arts, because it is across from the orchestra and down the street from PAFA, we're going to make significant investments in expanding and also moving programs from our Tyler School of Art and Architecture, our Boyer College of Music, our Center for the Fine and Performing Arts, and consolidate those in there as well, in part because the University of the Arts spend tens of millions of dollars investing in really, first-rate performing arts and music and art space. And so we don't want that to go to waste. And so we looked at it as an opportunity to not only continue to do our professional programs in Center City, because it's more convenient in many cases for people to get there after work than going up to North Philadelphia, but it's also an opportunity to leverage all the previous investment made by the University of the Arts to sort of grow the programs in an area where Philadelphia has made one of its big bets in the arts. And we feel like we complement that because there is no longer an educational institution there doing that kind of backbone educational work, and now we're there. And I have to say, and I'm very proud that Temple was able to take 380 students, this is before my time, but take 380 students, give them a new home, and honestly, had Temple been given the opportunity, I think we might have been able to salvage the entire situation. We weren't given the opportunity, but that's the kind of thing where, the anchors need to reach out and step into the void. We're doing our best right now to step into that void, reactivate that building, and make sure that, down the road there'll be thousands of Temple people joining the others on Avenue of the Arts and doing all sorts of great things together.
Well, I want to thank Temple for what they're doing on South Broad Street. I'm a South Philly boy, born and raised. So many of those areas that are on the Avenue of the Arts, I frequented as a young man growing up in South Philly. I would also say that the arts scene in Philadelphia, I would put up against any other major city in the world, not just in the United States. Whether you go to Paris, whether you're in New York, or any place across the world, we have some of the most high-quality art spaces right in the central part of Philadelphia that, quite honestly, I think many people take for granted because it's always been there. You know what I mean? Every major show that's going to travel across the world at some point in time, it will be in Philly, or at the Academy of Music, whether at the Kimmel Center, it will make a stop in Philadelphia. When you think about any major artist who has a world tour, there's going to be a stop in Philadelphia. And I think we've experienced that for so long that we take for granted that we have so much of this right here in the city of the first class. And all of those people who come to Philadelphia from all over the region to experience those things benefit all of the taxpayers in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania when they come and they spend their resources in Philadelphia. So I just want to publicly say I thank Temple for what they're doing. And quite honestly, I would encourage more investment of Temple University on South Broad Street to continue to help us where we develop in the arts in that space. My next question is for Lincoln. I am very pleased with the increases that Lincoln has seen over the last 3 years. I was not actually joking, but sound joke when I was, naming some of the famous alums of Lincoln University. But all of that is true. Langston Hughes did go to Lincoln University. Lincoln University is a university that has educated presidents across this world. And when you were making your comments, Dr. Allen, about the number of African-American doctors and whatnot that have gone to HBCUs, you made a comment about if Lincoln had more, they could do more. If you had more, what would that look like for the students of Lincoln? What are some of the things that you're unable to do that you really would do if there was increased funding for Lincoln?
I am unable to keep my kids in school. And so when Chairman asked about enrollment, that enrollment is down, not because of a lack of interest. In fact, in this past September new class that came in the fall of 2025, we had nearly 350 students who had put down a deposit, but who could not attend because we didn't have enough resources to actually clear them. And we don't want to bring students in and not be able to see them through the first year, but definitely through the 4 years. And so while we need much of our appropriation to actually spread across many different things, primarily if we had more appropriations specifically designed to support students, I think it would help us to grow and we can do more to contribute to what those individuals can do once they get that great education.
I had dinner last night with a gentleman who was a classmate of Chief Justice Roberts in law school. And, we had a nice dinner, we talked a lot. And sometimes I think in Pennsylvania, we take for granted the abundance of riches that we have with regards to our higher education institutions. Now listen, I am all about holding universities and departments and everybody accountable for taxpayer resources. We should. It is our responsibility to hold folks accountable when we are administering taxpayer resources. But I also think we take for granted the fact that we in Pennsylvania have some of the finest institutions of higher education known to the world. Known to the world. The four that sit here are some of the finest who have educated folks who go on and literally not only change the trajectory of Pennsylvania, but change the trajectory of this country and of the world. And so when we talk about the investment of these resources, yes, we should hold folks accountable. We also have to understand that many of the young people who, and not even young people, many of the learners who are going to these four universities are getting a world-class education that many of them would not be able to get would it not be for the finances that this General Assembly provides to them. Many of them would not have it. I oftentimes wonder what ailments, what diseases, what of the world's problems would have already been solved if some of the young people who couldn't afford to go to college were able to. I wonder would we have already had a cure for cancer? I wonder would we already have a cure for HIV? I wonder what of these things would no longer plague us if the finances were in place for folks to get the education at these type of world-class institutions that would then lead them on to change the course of our world. What would have happened if there was no Lincoln for Langston Hughes or for Thurgood? What would have happened if these opportunities weren't there for many who have gone to these universities? My mother, my grandmother, Temple University made. I would not be here today if my grandmother wouldn't have gone to CCP first and then Temple University. I tell the story often. My mother was living with her two brothers. My grandmother was raising them in the projects in South Philadelphia, 13th Street projects. We call it Saigon, 13th Street, right? That's where my mom grew up. As my grandmother raised them. Had she not had the opportunity to go to school, I would not be here today. So, as we debate over the next few months on what the budget is for these institutions, let us also remember that as we hold folks accountable for the dollars and cents, that these aren't just dollars and cents, but it is actually the investment in the future of the state, the country, and the world that we say we want to see. And with that, we will wrap up this budget hearing and thank all of the university presidents for being here and for all the work that you do every day to advance education for all of our constituents. We'll be back at 1:45. Where we'll have the state system of higher education in the community colleges before this committee. Until then, this committee meeting is adjourned.